You are listening to Any Given Sunday, a part of the Dead End Podcast Network. Please subscribe to our podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google, and all other podcasting services. Please make sure you check out Dead End Hip Hop, Dead End Sports, Dead End Gaming, Is the Mic Still On, Chris Platt's Strictly Hip Hop and Hoops Talk, and a host of other shows on our podcast network. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show. Welcome back to Any Given Sunday for Sunday, November 15th, 2020. I am your host, Manny Brown, joined by my co-host, Josh Rodriguez. Josh, what's up?
Not much, man. How's it going, Manny? How are you?
Prepping for this lockdown, you know?
Yeah, I think we're soon, too. As well.
It's not quite a lockdown. They're not calling it a full lockdown, just restrictions, but pretty much a lockdown.
Yeah, pretty much.
I don't even know how I feel about it. Well, I do know how I feel about it. I'm sure I'll share my thoughts as the show goes along, but
I'm interested to hear how you feel about it.
So you got half the country. This is a 50-50 issue. Like, there's a lot of people that feel like, what's the point of a lockdown? If you're just locking us down for months at a time without a stimulus, without any sort of government assistance, and we don't have a vaccine, nothing's really changing. So what's the point of a lockdown?
Right.
But then, of course, you have the other half. It's like, okay, lock us down. We need to make sure that we curb this spike and all these other things. And these are all valid points. Like, I don't think there's a wrong point anywhere in all of this, right? I don't know, man. I just feel like for me, I've kind of reached a point now where I think we just have to live with this. Like, it is what it is. And until we have a vaccine, there's no real way of curbing this on a wide scale level. I mean, yeah, locking down the country did work. Obviously closing different businesses, restaurants, bars, anything with a large gathering of people. Obviously that helps. My main point of contention is the lack of consistency with what can stay open, what can't, right? And then also, like, lockdowns work when you have a government that is fully functioning, that is saying, hey, don't go to work for 4 months. We'll pay you.
Right.
We'll help your businesses stay afloat.
Right.
Don't have to worry about paying rent or mortgage or whatever, and we'll be there to split the bill. If you have a government that does that, then of course, lock us down. It's wintertime anyway, right? Most people, unless you live in California or in Arizona or in Texas or somewhere in the South where you don't have a really rough winter, like, most people are going to be indoors for the next 3 or 4 months, for the majority, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead, lock us down. But if you're telling us, hey, we're going to lock you down because we don't really know how to curb this spike, but hey, you're basically on your own. Figure out how you're going to pay rent. Figure out how you're going to pay your mortgage. And if you happen to work in the service sector industry or in a gig economy somewhere, good luck with unemployment. That just doesn't work for me. You know what I mean? And I'm blessed that obviously I'm not in a situation where I'm in a fear of losing my job or in a situation where I might lose my job. So that helps. I can't even imagine what somebody who owns a small business is going through. Like, even in this community, like, I'm lucky enough to work in government, so I know a lot of small business owners. And, I hear the horror stories, man, how people are just like, man, I can't afford to stay open. I want to, people that own restaurants, they're like, I don't even know if I'm going to make it to 2 months. I don't know. It's sad. Like, there's this lady across the street from my job just opened her cafe literally like 2 weeks before the pandemic became the pandemic. Right. Like, so literally she opened her cafe, like, I want to say like February 1st, but probably like around the 14th or something. Right. So literally a month later, she loses all of her clientele and she opens her business literally February 1st, 2020. And of course, going through the whole business planning phase, getting a loan, getting a facility, getting that facility built up. I mean, obviously she would have never known that this was going to be a thing. Right. And it's crushing, man. It's sad. And I talk to her quite often and she's like, it's uncertain. I probably have enough to just kind of make it month to month at this rate. If you're not making the revenue, you're pretty much assed out. So yeah, I feel really strongly about it, man. And I always get annoyed too. Like, this is one of those issues where you can have differing opinions. Like, I hate that we live in such a polarized country right now that, like, if you're anti-lockdowns, then that means you're like some crazy right-wing, like, anti-mask wearing nut. Like, no, of course I believe in wearing masks and I believe in being safe and taking all of the preventative measures possible to avoid a spike. That being said, the lockdown is not a popular thing amongst Americans. It's very split. And I get it. There's valuable reasons on both sides to be for or against a lockdown. And I just don't think it's a one-sided issue. I don't think it's we should just completely lock down or, we should just completely be run free, right? Like, there's nuance on both sides. So I'm interested to see what you think about it. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I would lean more. I think you and I pretty much have the same point of view. I mean, I would be in favor of a lockdown, but, we have to live in reality in the sense where, our government's just not going to provide whatever we need to sustain ourselves. They're not going to give us the popular stimulus funding. hurting. Small businesses are going to continue to hurt. So I can understand a small business owner who's like, listen, I understand the need to lock down and stop the spread of this virus, but I literally cannot survive a lockdown. So I do understand that. I do think a lockdown would be more safe. I think a lockdown would be smarter. I think that's something the CDC recommends. I think that's something WHO would probably want as well. I mean, you look at countries like South Korea and Australia who did do these things from the beginning. They're way past where we are. And I think a lot of it is because they didn't let the virus spread. So for me, best case scenario, we would all come inside for 4 to 6 weeks. But I know for a fact, A, the government's not going to fund that. And B, you're just going to have people who are not going to follow the rules. So I don't know how effective it would be. But just because it wouldn't be effective doesn't mean it's not something I would recommend. So like if I was president of the United States of America, I would say, hey, listen, we need to do this as a country, 4 to 6 weeks, blah, 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 blah. But I would also add on top of that, if you have a small business, we're going to give you this. If you are an adult, or if you're anybody, if you're a U.S. citizen, we're going to give you this, rent freeze, mortgage freeze, whatever it is. But realistically, of course, this government's not going to come through with that. So I just feel like we are in a position where no matter what the country does, it's not going to work because we're not going to have, like you said, there are arguments both sides, but we're not going to get on the same side and do it together. There's just no functioning way where we're going to have a lockdown and the government's going to do what it needs to do. And that people who are anti-mask or people who are anti-lockdown are going to follow the rules. And if we don't lock down, the virus is just going to spread even more in my mind because people still aren't wearing masks. And I wear my mask. I'm pretty sure you wear your mask. And a lot of people I know wear masks, but I know a lot of people don't wear masks either. And as long as they're not wearing a mask, this thing is going to continue to spread because it has been continuing to spread. They say we're on our third wave, but I'm sitting here arguing we're not even past our first wave. We just continue.
I agree with you. Yeah.
So, I mean, for me, the only way this stops is a vaccine, which we're not even close to yet. And then that's going to be a whole process too, because, I'm not someone who's anti-vax, but at the same time, I'm not going to just put something in my body for the hell of it. I want to make sure it's, good to go. There are dangers to vaccines. It is what it is. Like people don't want to put things into their body. You can't fault someone for that. I mean, there are
absolutely.
Yeah. So like, I totally get that argument as well. I just feel like as a country, like we've messed up this response so bad that I don't even think people realize how much we messed it up because we're still such a long way from getting rid of this virus. Like we're going to have to seriously vaccine and shut the country down. It has to come to that. I know it sounds terrible. It sounds like, tyranny to some people, but like this virus is no joke and it's really random. I think that's what's so crazy about the virus. It's so despite pre-existing conditions or how healthy you are or what your age is, like it can literally cripple you and kill you. I mean, it's just, I don't know. We live in a crazy time. I mean, like I said, best case scenario, lockdown, stimulus checks, stimulus for small businesses, rent freeze, all that good stuff. But I just know damn well that the government's not going to do that.
Yeah. And that's my biggest issue, right? If the government is not going to do that, then I think it's hard to tell people, hey, stay home 4 to 6 weeks. I think it's hard to tell people, hey, we're going to close gyms. We're going to close bars. God forbid, work in any one of those industries or own a business in one of those industries. You're screwed. You know what I mean? You're just, you're screwed. Especially think about it from a retail perspective, right? Like you're basically killing your retail business right now in the busiest shopping season of the year, right? So some of these businesses that were, even just praying to kind of go into the black or just even barely make it to the black. Now, forget about it. You know what I mean? Now, I'm not so much worried about the retail industry because obviously you're still going to have online shopping. You're still going to have some component of people shopping and buying and doing stuff. And honestly, with the lockdown, that's probably the only thing you can do to keep yourself from being bored and depressed if you have the money to at least, be able to shop is to, spend on retail, right? But that being said, though, it's an imperfect situation, man. I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer. And it's sad because there is such partisanship. It's so politically toxic right now that it's almost like, again, like I said, if you come out and say, yeah, I'm all for taking this virus seriously. I'm all for making sure that we're doing the right things. If you say those things, but, I'm anti the lockdown, now you're some right wing idiot that doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about. And it's the same way on the other side, right? If you're just like, hey man, just lock us down for as long as you want, then you're some sort of communist, Che Guevara wearing, t-shirt wearing Nazi or socialist Marxist or whatever, right? Like, so it's so toxic on both sides, man. And and you hit it right on the head, right? That the response to this has been so bad that, I remember when I was first like researching the virus and, people and economists were talking about, what are the lasting effects of this? Like, and a lot of people said that this was going to be a 3 to 5 year thing. And I was like, man, that seems a little much. But now looking at it, man, yeah, I can definitely, I mean, this is essentially going to cripple us for the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
Let's say we get best case scenario, we get a vaccine, a working, fully tested, have to preface that, fully tested, fully working, trustworthy vaccine, January 1st, 2022. I don't know. None of us have ever lived through this. How fast can you get that out on the open market? How fast can everybody get it? You know what I'm saying? What's the turnaround rate from when you get the vaccine to where you're no longer, a potential risk of either getting it or infecting others, or that's, vice versa. So how much exactly. How much will it cost? Hopefully they make it something that it's available to the public as a whole. And then it's like, okay, you get the vaccine, then we got to repair all the stupid things that we've done up to this point, right? So, repair the economy, repair some of these local municipalities that are getting killed and crushed by this. You know what I mean? All of this stuff, it's going to take time. People think that, okay, as soon as we get a vaccine, yep, that's it, over, done with. No, I don't think that's going to happen at all. So it's troubling, man. But I don't. You're in New York right now. How things are? I haven't had a chance to talk to some of my people out there, but how are things in New York? You guys are getting ready to shut it down too, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, they're toying with the idea. They were going to shut down schools and close schools tomorrow being Monday, but I think they're keeping them open for now. Out here, everyone's wearing a mask in stores. I mean, granted, I'm in a suburb right now. I haven't been in the city since I've been back. I'm staying with my father until I move back to Los Angeles. But I live in a suburb. It's just completely different than the city. So I haven't been in the city. I have no idea. Yeah. But yeah, they were toying with the idea of shutting it down again, which I think is going to happen.
Yeah, it's going to happen. It's going to. The numbers now.
Like I'm not against it. I'm not against it. I think it needs to be done, but 4 to 6 weeks with half of the people following the orders and no stimulus checks, and some people going to work because they have to. That 4 to 6 weeks is going to do absolutely nothing. It might do something for a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's just going to come right back because some people are out not following the orders, and they might not have been following the orders for respective reasons because they have a family to feed. So it's one of those things where I just and this is where just bring it back to the election where you and I we're happy that Trump is gone, but I'm in the same breath we just voted an administration that's not going to handle these type of things the way that we would want them to be handled, unfortunately. So
we'll see. Like I said, we'll see. We just I think the biggest thing that annoys me though is I had a trip planned to go see my mom, see family. That's pretty much now up in the air at best. No, she's in Florida, but I mean, Florida is essentially COVID city, the epicenter of COVID, right? Yeah. So shout out to Ron DeSantis. So pretty much that's up in the air. And it's just my biggest thing is, okay, so gyms are closed, bars are closed, restaurants can stay open to 25% or whatever, right? So I think that's what it is. I think they're up to 25% capacity. But, I think that just listening to Jay Inslee say, he put out restaurants are indoor seating is closed completely. So restaurants can actually seat outdoor seating, but who the fuck wants to go outside?
Outdoor seating is built with a tent around it. So right. It's basically indoor seating outdoors. That's what it is.
Right. So it just doesn't make sense, right? It's just and I get it. We're all just grasping at straws to a point, right? Because we're all just trying to figure it out as we go. We're using the health experts' advice best as we can and trying to make a rational decision. I get that. And I'm not trying to knock Inslee. I know people are on Twitter bashing Jay Inslee like he's the worst person ever. Some people, and again, it's a totally split. You got people on the right who say Jay Inslee is a tyrannical, socialist, and then you got people on the left that Jay Inslee is the greatest thing ever, right? So it's split down the middle, I would say. I get it. We're trying to do the best that we can here, but I don't know, man. It's so frustrating. It's so frustrating. And I think for me, it's just so frustrating because it does feel like, I don't know how it feels like for you being in LA and then now being in New York again. But for me, I don't feel like we're not, obviously I'm not around outside 24/7 in every area and every corner of Washington to see what's going on, right? But at least from my little pocket of the world, and that's the only thing you can speak on, right? Is your little pocket of the world. I feel like people are doing the right thing. I feel like people are wearing their mask. I don't go anywhere and I don't see anybody without a mask. I see masks everywhere, right? I feel like people in Washington State are, for the most part, right, doing the right thing. And the numbers are still spiking. So how much of this is just happenstance? It's just going to happen because we just don't have a way to prevent this. We just have no way to fight this, right? Without a vaccine, without something that we know for sure is going to work. Who knows? I think that's the frustrating part about it, because it's not like I'm in Orlando. I talk to friends in Florida. I talk to friends even in New York, right? They'll tell me, but specifically Florida, right? They'll tell me, oh yeah, you go to the mall here and you'll see, for every 10 people you see wearing a mask, you'll see 10 people that are not, right?
It's like that in LA,
really?
by the way. Yeah.
Yeah. Here, I can honestly say, again, I'm not in every single corner of Washington State, so I cannot say that. But I know for me, in my little pocket of the world, I've gone to restaurants, I have gone to the mall, I've gone to a movie theater. Everybody is wearing a mask, young, old, like everybody's taking it seriously. Like, I don't know, man.
Well, I wouldn't say 10 for every 10 that you see wearing a mask, probably 3 or 4 not wearing a mask. It's not the same rate as Florida, but there are a lot of people not wearing masks, especially in the beach cities.
Oh yeah.
Especially on the coast.
I don't know, man. I don't know. And part of it also, man, for me is like, I'm at the point now, bro, where it's like, I know this is going to sound harsh, but it's like, it's natural selection time, baby.
Nah,
like
I'm just with you on that, man.
I'm just like, bro, like, honestly, I'm not in the business of convincing people to wear masks anymore. I'm not in a business of trying to teach people what the hell to do. It's like, if at this point we've been dealing with this virus now, or what, in November, we've been dealing with this for 8 months, 8 months. We've known about it for about 9 or 10. If at this rate, you're still questioning the science, if you're still questioning the validity of the facts and what's going on and what's not, you know what I mean? Like, then you're never going to understand. You're just one of those people that again, that conversation we had last week about how do you connect, that unity thing, right? How do you talk to the other side when they just don't live in reality? Natural selection, bro. Like, honestly, I'm just so frustrated with everything, because it's like, you know what? I for the first time, I was just so frustrated the other night that I just told my wife, I was like, no restrictions. You know what? Just make it a free for all. Just say, fuck it. You know what? You want to wear your mask? Wear your mask. If you don't want to wear a mask, then don't wear your mask. Because, bro, it's like, it's just so frustrating, because it's like,
I get it. No, I get it. I get it's frustrating. I understand it's frustrating, but that's an awful idea, man.
I know it's an awful idea. I sound like a Republican governor.
Nah,
it's a free for all.
I'm not down with herd immunity. And listen, the whole natural selection thing, to me, I get what you're saying, but at the end of the day, like, everyone, you can be doing all the right things correctly and you can still get it. So to me, it's really not natural selection. I wish it was natural selection. If it was natural selection, I'd be like, all right. Everyone just go out and do what you got to do.
Yeah.
But no, I just don't see it the same way you do. But I am frustrated. I mean, it sucks. And I'm not going to lie. Yeah. I go out more than I should. But I always wear a mask. But I still go out more than I should. Like, there are times where I play basketball. I play with a mask on, but I play basketball. Like, I go shoot around. I go out to eat. Like, I do those type of things. And, I understand that I'm risking not just myself and other people, and it might be a little selfish. But, like, I just think as a nation, for the most part, a lot of us, if not most of us, are doing that because we're just fatigued. It's just a fatigue factor. And a lot of it is entitlement as well. I'm not going to sit here and act like it's not entitlement. Like, I want to do things, and it's hard to stay home. And, I feel like I'm following protocol by wearing a mask and not staying. I'm not going out to parties. I'm not doing anything like that. But, like, I'm doing little things. Like, I'll go to the courts and I'll shoot around if I could. If someone wants to play with me, it took me a while to play with other people. I wasn't doing that. Me and my friend, we would just play horse. And then after a while, I was like, all right, I'll play with the mask on. So, but even that type of stuff, man, like, I cut down on that a lot, just because, I don't know, just lately, just seeing the numbers, it's kind of like a reality check where it's like, I can't be doing this. Like, it's kind of scaring me again. And I'm definitely pro lockdown, for the simple fact that I think it's just the most effective way to stop the virus before we have a vaccine, which we don't know where we're going to have. I just don't trust the country, and I don't trust our government to do the lockdown correctly. So if we do a 4 to 6 week lockdown, and when it doesn't work, because it's not if it doesn't work, it's going to be when it doesn't work, because our country's not going to have the capabilities to do it. It's just going to make things worse at the end, because it's going to be 4 to 6 weeks. We're going to do it. And then the people who are anti-lockdown are going to be even more anti-lockdown when we would try to do it again, if we do have to do it again. So I don't know, man. I just feel like we're in a really tough position in this country right now.
Yeah, we're very tough right now. And again, I want to preface with saying, I'm not saying that they should just lift all restrictions and let everybody basically fend the road. No, I know you know this. I don't want a nasty DM, right. Man, he's a right-wing idiot, No, I'm not saying that. But no, it's like, again, and my whole trepidation is, I'm for lockdowns if you have a government that is actually working for the people, that is saying, you know what, we are going to take care of business. And hopefully Joe Biden's administration is that. Do I have faith in that? Not really, but we'll see. They did bring in Ron Klain as a chief of staff. That's a good move. I think that's a step in the right direction. We shall see. He is the czar of Ebola, so at the very least, he's someone that's competent.
This question, actually, I don't even know. What can Biden do executively, like with executive order about stimulus? We got to pass it through the Senate, right?
Yeah, we got to pass it through the Senate.
You can't do anything from an executive standpoint, right?
No. No. I mean, he can put a moratorium on all, from a federal level, he could put a moratorium on all evictions. He could put a moratorium on all, mortgages and whatnot. I mean, there's things you could do, but again, it's people, and part of it is, I think it's Obama's biggest legacy, right? Because it was like, everything was, executive orders became such an in vogue thing, right? Because of Obama in a lot of ways, right? Like, oh, I signed an executive order doing this, that we have this idea.
Signed that many though. Right.
Well, it just felt like he did, didn't it? Didn't it feel like it was just like an executive order fest?
Because every time he signed an executive order, Republicans made a huge deal to be like he was a tyrant. I'm gonna look it up right now.
Right, but it just feels like he signed a whole bunch of executive orders, and because to a part that was the only thing he could do, right? Because he was so hamstrung by the fact that Republicans were obstructing, and also there's a lot of things that he did wrong as well. But I think people lionize executive orders as if this is like it's this great power that presidents have with executive orders. You're really limited on what you can actually do from an executive order perspective.
Right. So Obama had 276. George Bush had 291. So Bush had more than Obama. Bill Clinton had 364. So Clinton had more than Bush and Obama.
Wow. I don't know why. I don't know. Well, obviously we were both young, but when Clinton was still doing
I remember Republicans making a huge deal out of it. That's what I remember about the executive orders. Every time he did one, my Republican friends and their parents would be like, "Oh my God, we're living in tyranny."
He's Fidel Castro. Yeah. He's Fidel Castro. Yeah.
And I remember looking it up. Like, this dude signed less executive orders than Bush. I remember thinking that. And Donald Trump, 194 executive orders, only as a one-term president, so he was on track for maybe a little under 400.
Yeah. So I don't know. It just felt like executive orders became like a bigger thing with Obama, and part of it was because of Obama and everything that brought, obviously. But can Biden do much with an executive order, man? Not really. At least in my opinion, I don't think he can. I mean, again, he could do some good, but realistically, without the help of the Senate, I mean, you're pretty much screwed on what you can accomplish from a legislative perspective. So, and look, I do think they'll probably pass a stimulus. It almost would be political suicide not to at this point.
It would be, but I mean, when has that stopped the Republicans from blocking stuff in the Senate before?
Well, here's the thing. This is why I think a stimulus will be done, because I think Joe Biden will come in, try to work with the Republicans. Remember, that's his thing. John Kasich, he'll give John Kasich a hard on because he'll work with the Republicans, and it'll be a stimulus that'll be far less than even Trump's stimulus. He'll concede on a lot of things. He'll basically make it a right wing stimulus, and it'll be a help. It'll be something. Something's better than nothing. But yeah,
it's gonna be underwhelming.
Honestly, bro, Biden's first term. And I say that rather loosely, obviously, because we don't know what's going to happen if he does run in 2024 again or whatever, right? But this administration is going to be pretty much judged on, can they navigate us through this pandemic by way of stimulus and a vaccine? If he does those two things fairly well, I think that this administration has been a success. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. I just think that a lot of that's going to be through deficit spending, and how the Republicans are going to bring up a bunch of that type of stuff. But yeah, I do agree. And then you got to understand, a lot of Republicans, or just people in this country in general, don't even think not that these numbers aren't real, but if you were going, like I said, 72 million people voted for Donald Trump during a pandemic that killed over 220,000 people. So I just think in a lot of people's minds, this thing is not even that big of a deal.
No.
It's not.
No,
and
right.
The people who it is a big deal to didn't vote for Trump. And they're probably going to vote Democratic again in 2024 anyway. So I get what you're saying. I think realistically and historically, objectively, that yes, Biden's presidency, at least the first term, if there are two terms, will be judged on how well he handles this pandemic and how the economy responds to whatever stimulus he provides. Yeah,
we'll see. We'll see. Like I said, I have no faith. I have more faith that a stimulus will get done now. Had Bernie won, I just really wouldn't have thought. But I think Biden is such a tool for Republicans that I think he'll and plus you could just see it now, right? I think for him, he'll look at it as once all of the lawsuits and Trump is eventually booted out, in a way to kind of calm the waters. He'll sit there and be like, hey, we'll sit down, we'll talk, we'll get a stimulus going. I'll concede on these things that we clearly need. Instead of a $3 trillion stimulus, it'll be like 1.5 or 1 trillion. Bro, that's basically what it's going to be. That's why I'm not optimistic because I feel like Donald Trump, because I feel like Joe Biden will actually do the thing that's right. I think I'm optimistic because he has a thirst and a want to work with Republicans. So that's why we'll probably get a stimulus, and it will not be nearly enough to help everyone, but it'll be something, and he'll get credit for it, I guess. And that's it.
You're so right, man. Like I can't even like that's it's true. I agree doing it.
Yeah, and I'm not even like, oh yeah, glad to be right. I'm just like, oh god, I wish I was wrong. I'm hoping I'm wrong. By the way, I'm hoping
it's better than nothing. It is better.
Yeah, it is better than nothing. Right. What do you think of the brewing civil war inside of the Democratic Party? You know, because according to all of the establishment Dems, right, just blame the progressives. This is how funny it is, right? Joe Biden won the presidency, and they're still blaming progressives.
And a lot of that is cable news too, man. Like this, this is what makes me laugh when people are like, "Oh, the liberal media." It's like, dude, it's not a liberal media. It's not a liberal media.
Oh, it's establishment media.
Exactly, because the Democratic House representatives of the people who lost their spots were, middle of the road, opponents of Medicare for all, opponents of the Green New Deal. All the progressives who held those views, they held on to their seats, and then we added some more. So this idea that, defund the police or the Green New Deal or Medicare for all scared off Republicans, it's not borne out by any factual data whatsoever.
None.
It's a talking point that establishment media and the Democratic establishment are going to use to suppress progressives like AOC and the Squad.
And what pisses me off is they never correct anyone who brings any of this nonsense up, right? Like they'll sit there and correct a fucking Trump supporter 5 minutes into his spiel about how somebody's stealing an election, right? They're so big on norms and facts and, we got to live in reality. But then if like you sit there and they'll say, oh yeah, progressives are to blame because you can't run on socialism. And I'm like, no one actually sits there and says, well, actually the polling on this doesn't bear this at all. Like most people, it's like 70% of the country is for Medicare for all. Weed was legalized in Florida. Like, all of these things, Jersey too, right? Like not exactly, liberal bastions, right? So no one actually on network television and that's part of it is because they don't have any real progressives on television at all. Like there's no progressive voice at all on major cable news.
Right. And then when there's when Nina Turner hops on, they make her out to be like she's a crazy black woman. So
yeah, that doesn't help at all. I love her. That's auntie. That's auntie right there. That's auntie.
But yeah, it's just really frustrating. I don't know how the Squad and the Jamal Bowmans of the world are going to affect the Democratic Party, but I really do hope they make some noise. I really hope that when the stimulus is passed or in the process of being passed, I think AOC and the Squad, they do a great job of going on Twitter saying this isn't enough. They get the message out there, and I think a lot of people do listen to that. And the problem is we have to get them more in the mainstream. How do you get them in the mainstream? Because right now we live on Twitter. Twitter to us is an everyday thing, but for the most part, it's the fringes. Not too many people listen or get their news on Twitter, and it's half and half. So her message is going to half of these Democrats, and the half of all these people are calling her crazy socialist, and it's kind of hard to convey a message and hard for people to believe what she's saying in the first place. So I don't know how they're going to do it, but I think they've been doing a fantastic job of getting ideas like the Green New Deal and ideas like Medicare for all out there, and just hopefully they just stick to the message and they don't really bend the knee, quote unquote, too much. But we'll see. So
how would you, if I were to dump you into Washington right now and advise some of it, because I think there is really a fight right now for the soul of the Democratic Party. I really believe that it's up for grabs right now. Between the fact that we didn't pick up any seats in the Senate,
right,
as of today, right? That could obviously change with the 2 Senate seats in Georgia, but as of today, and we lost seats in the House, right? And some of the gubernatorial races didn't go our way either. So right now, do you feel like progressives are in more of a position to bargain or to inflict change, or do you still feel like the establishment still holds a mighty hand?
Well, I think in reality, progressives are in a position. It's just I think a big reason why that the establishment Dems have created this narrative that messages like Medicare for all and defund the police have happened is because they know that now the progressives would have leverage on them if they didn't have that message out there. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You look at the people who registered to vote during the whole Black Lives Matter protest. Look at the numbers, people, if you guys haven't looked at it. Democrats registered in record numbers during this time. They got people to register to vote. They got people registered to vote all across the country during Black Lives Matter protests, during the defund the police protest, for the reason of Black Lives Matter and defund the police. So the idea that these people are turned off by radical ideas, the fact that they even call it a radical idea is crazy, but the fact that they say these people are turned off by radical ideas just isn't true. So to me, it's all about messaging. I think within the tight circles of Washington, D.C., I think progressives hold more weight than we might realize. I just think that right now, establishment, they will go on TV and they will say certain things. They will go on Twitter and they'll say certain things, blaming the progressives for, I guess, underperforming in the election. But in reality, I think everyone pretty much knows the real deal. And that's how I feel, at least.
Yeah. I think that I think it's going to be ugly. I really do. I think you're seeing it now. I think it's starting out already. It's going to be ugly. I think progressives need to get their house in order. And what I mean by that is I think we have to have a united front. I think that we need to get the progressive caucus in line. So kicking out some of these blue dog Dems, some of these freaking, I mean, if you look at the progressive caucus, like there's like literally people in there that should not be in there at all. Like what? Why are you in this caucus at all? So, and they're trying to do that, right? So there's a lot of reporting going on that they are trying to get that stuff kind of tighter and locked down. Because I think that the model that progressives in Congress and in the Senate have to follow is, the Tea Party model, right? Where they're not afraid to piss people off. Right. We're going to primary your ass if you don't fucking do what we want you to do. And I think you've already seen you've seen it now in 2019 and now 2020 with Cori Bush, with Jamal Bowman, et cetera, all down the line that, if we have a voice, and I feel like you can challenge these establishments, Dems, on a lot of different issues. And if you see a little crack there where you can make an impact, I think you got to go for it. So, but they got to get their house in order.
They should hold rallies. Take a page out of Trump's playbook.
Absolutely. See, I'm so glad you brought that up, right? Because there's this narrative that like Trump is an idiot. It's not a narrative, but in a way, Trump is like an absolutely genius politician. Like he may not be like smart from a book smart context, but he's actually very street smart and he's politically smart. Trump understands messaging. He understands how to talk to people, and he understands his base, and he understands politics. It's like I don't understand why presidents didn't hold more other presidents didn't hold rallies.
Right. Like I agree. Obama should have held rallies. Touting his accomplishments, like when after bin Laden, like you can just go on a fucking country tour.
Oh yeah, like why didn't Obama have rallies in the lead up to ACH? Like when he had a supermajority, like I would have fucking had a rally every single weekend, bro. Like I'd have made that shit a Saturday night exclusive, bro. Obama at MSG, Obama at fucking like I would have had a rally anywhere, bro. Like and just
but at the time they were already, but his opponents were already saying that he's like this Hollywood president. They were knocking on him for going on Conan O'Brien.
Whatever.
And going on David Letterman.
But that's the stuff that you have to learn how to decipher the bullshit. All that is bullshit. All that is narratives. You and I both know this, but I'm just saying like I feel like Democrats and progressives don't get that. Like all of this is used as framing to frame you as such to really not focus on the real issues, right? So like I feel like this is something like Trump has taught us a lot of way how to use social media. Like I know a lot of people say Obama's the first social media president, and he is in a point, but Trump is really the first social media president.
He announced like policies online, or like the Muslim ban. Like he just tweeted out. No one knew what the hell was coming. He just
and I know we looked at that at the time, and yeah, exactly. And I know at the time we looked at it as like fucking batshit and crazy. Right. But it's smart. It works. Use the messaging that you have. So my advice to AOC and progressives, I understand that Twitter is still fringe as far as on the macro level, right? Like there's 330 million Americans. How many people are on Twitter? Maybe I don't know. Whatever. For the sake of this discussion, you want to say 75 million, 80 million people are on Twitter, right? Worldwide? Yeah. Whatever, right? I don't know. Somebody can look it up, right? But still, Twitter is a powerful tool, man. Like if I'm AOC, if I'm Jamal Bowman, I'm Cori Bush, and again, don't be afraid to talk shit on Twitter either. Like at Nancy Pelosi, at Chuck Schumer. Like
this is not going to cover small business.
At Adam Schiff, you know what I mean? Like go hard at these people, bro. Like use your base. And I feel like progressives needs to understand now that they have some momentum. They have some momentum because progressive policies are popular. You can make a case that they delivered Joe Biden the presidency, and not to mention the power of primaries. The power of primarying folks, because you got to think about it. Because even if you don't win, right? Like let's say Josh decides to primary Chuck Schumer, right? Like chances are you probably won't win, right? Just law of averages, right? Although we never know. Who would have thought that this waitress from the Bronx would have beaten, Joe Crowley, who was as establishment comes, right? Who would have thought that? So you never know. But even if you don't win, right, you get under their skin. It's a threat. They actually have to. It's like when an 8th seed challenges a 1 seed in the NBA playoffs, right? It's like the Lakers, right? It goes 7. Like deep down, the Lakers didn't want to go 7 with the freaking Phoenix Suns. Right? Like they wanted to sweep the Suns and get as much rest as possible and move on to play the Clippers or the Mavericks, right? But if the Suns take the Lakers to 7, you know what I'm saying? You're showing some weakness there. Now our narrative builds, and it's an annoyance. Same thing with this, right? You get the messaging out there. You get these people focusing on a primary that they otherwise wouldn't have. I feel like I think that will come to bear. Like, I do really feel like there is a change on the progressive side of things in the Democratic Party, where I think like progressives are starting to understand that they have some power, that they have some skin in the game now. And I hopefully they use it for some good, man. Hopefully.
It's just I feel like progressives right now, all their policies are what most American wants, whether they're on the left or right. They just don't know it yet. I mean, if you ask anyone, do you want healthcare? Do you think you should have healthcare? They will say yes. You know, the Green New Deal, climate change, and just, you know, incorporating jobs and do like into the future and moving away from oil into like new energy. Like, I think most Americans, both left and right, would agree with that. It's all about messaging, which is what you just said. And I think the most effective way to do that is to have rallies, is to, you know, tweet stuff and to get your message out there. And also somehow, some way, I don't know how they're going to do this, but the word socialism, we just have to become more better educated as a country as to what that means and what the good things to socialism are and what the bad things to socialism are, like, and differentiate why certain socialist countries didn't work out, like Venezuela, and you can say Cuba, and why some have, like Sweden and Norway. You get what I'm saying? So I just think a lot of it's education as well. But that comes down to messaging, like you just said. So you got to leave it up to like the AOCs of the world to do that.
Right. And I'm totally with you, man. And I feel like with Biden, because Biden's such an empty vessel, like he really is just an empty suit, that I think there's more opportunity than, let's say, a stronger candidate or a stronger president from a Democratic side, where I think this is where I do see some positives in Biden being president, because I think Biden doesn't really have a core belief in anything, more so than like working with Republicans and defunding, you know, and basically, you know, breaking up Social Security essentially is like his core beliefs for like 40 years. But everything else, I think like Biden is movable on, especially like issues that affect like every day, you know, he likes to label himself as like Scranton Joe, and you know, I'm the everyman.
I think he does genuinely care about all Americans. I think his solutions are very status quo, where he's conservative in the sense where it's like, well, why don't we just go in this direction? We've been going this direction our whole lives. You know, this has worked. Why have new ideas? Why go that way? And I think that's how he looks at the world, which I obviously don't agree with, but I don't think. I'm confident that he actually cares about all Americans.
Me too. And I think sometimes when we talk about politics, right, we have a tendency of like making this shit so personal that like you like, I don't dislike Joe Biden. Like, I think he's a good man. I think he has a good heart. I think he means well. I think his policies sometimes have left a lot to be desired on a lot of things. Right. And he thinks like he's a 78-year-old man. He's a baby boomer. He thinks like most baby boomers. Right. Like, oh, this has been the process always, so why shouldn't we just keep doing, right? Or this is like what we always done, so why not let's just keep doing the same thing, right? As opposed to millennials and Gen Zers, folks in our age bracket that are like, yeah, this is stupid. Why hasn't anybody addressed why this doesn't work? Right. But I do think Biden generally does care about people. Just how he cares and what his solutions are to fix the problem are the problem. But I think he's movable in some areas. I want the progressive. The most frustrating thing about it to me is Republicans are so much better at politics than Democrats and progressives.
Insanely. They are such better politicians. It's not.
They are. They're bad on policy, but they're great on politics.
Fantastic.
Like, they get a nugget. Like Republicans, conservatives, they're so great at messaging because they find the little crux in the argument. Like, the whole 98% of the argument could be bullshit and like right-wing babble, but they find that one thing that will resonate with everybody, and they just drill every media appearance, every CPAC, every emails. Exactly. Right. Emails. Republicans are so much better. They're so much better at messaging and politics in general than Democrats and progressives, right? Like progressives are better at policy, but they're bad at politics. And I think that we just have to get better at the politics part.
Well, because Republicans are ruthless. And I mean that in both good and bad ways.
They're ruthless. Absolutely.
They have no fucking conscience whatsoever. They want something, they're going to do whatever the hell it takes to get that, period. Point blank, period. If I'm going to compliment Mitch McConnell on anything, it's the fact that he's ruthless. He's
fucking ruthless. And he understands how government works. Exactly. He understands. Why do you think Mitch McConnell was so ruthless in Merrick Garland? Because he understands where true power lies. Right. He understands that if we can shape the court to be a conservative court forever, or at least for a generation, that's power. Power isn't getting on Twitter and, canceling a fucking celebrity when he says something stupid. Right. Power isn't blocking Donald Trump on Twitter. No. Power is the Supreme Court, the legislative branch of government. This is power. This is real, tangible power.
And not giving a damn about whether you're a hypocrite about it or not.
Exactly. And not giving a damn how you get there. Ruthlessness, right? That's where real power lies. And I think that Democrats, progressives, if you want to label us all in the same bracket, they don't understand how power works. One of the most frustrating things about the primary, right, is when Joe Biden is clearly the front runner for the for the Democratic nomination, right? Everybody's gunning for Biden, right? Because he's got the name recognition, former vice president, guy's been in politics for 40 years, right? From a messaging perspective, right? Every one of them says, "Oh, Joe's my friend. I have no doubt that Joe can do the job well if he's elected." Well, then nobody ever understood. Like, if you say that, then why are people going to vote for you? If Joe Biden can do the job, why am I voting for Pete Buttigieg? If Joe Biden can do the job, if he's competent, well, why am I voting for Bernie?
Right. And that's why everyone geared towards Biden, because everyone's
exactly
Biden. That's
exactly. Or, Biden is my friend. Biden is this. No. Kill all that shit. Like, this is a competition at the end of the day. This is a job application. And if you got to fucking step over the next man to do it, and I know it sucks, and I know we live in a world where we all want morality and purity and all that, fuck that. When it comes to power, man, you got to be able to roll in the mud, man.
And then Republicans, too, I'll give them credit, they fall in line. Like, you see what Trump did to Ted Cruz? Like, even whenever Trump did to Ted Cruz during the process.
That shit would never happen in the Democratic Party.
Ever. No. Ted Cruz falling in line after what Donald Trump has done to his family. Are you kidding me?
Because he understands. Because Ted Cruz, whatever you may think of Ted Cruz, he's not a fucking idiot.
No, he's not.
He gets it. He understands where power truly lies.
Republicans do. Mitch McConnell is probably top 3 most effective politician of my lifetime.
Yeah.
Can't deny.
Hate to say it. I
hate everything he stands for as far as getting his agenda across, whatever he wants. Who's been more effective than him?
Who
hasn't been president?
No, yeah, exactly. I mean, you can definitely make an argument that Mitch McConnell is probably the most powerful politician of our lifetime.
Who has not been president?
Who has not been president, right? Yeah. So it's definitely a conversation to be had. I mean, you can make that argument. Yeah. And the other thing with this too, right? When we talk about power begets power. And not even so much that, but like from an establishment perspective, right? Because what's the talking point throughout this whole election, right? Like if Biden gets elected, progressives will be able to push him on certain issues. And to a point, yes, I agree with that. But also you got to think about it. Biden basically won the nomination and pretty much the presidency without any real progressive support, without really bending the knee to progressives really at all on anything.
He's progressives.
So if you're Joe Biden, right?
Yeah.
What do I owe the progressives for? What do I owe the left? I don't owe you anything because he understands what power. You didn't put me in his mind anyway.
Stacey,
you didn't deliver me the presidency. Are we calling Stacey Abrams a progressive?
Not anymore, man. When she first came on the scene, I thought she was.
she's still cashing those Bloomberg checks. I don't know if she's a progressive, bro. But shout out to Stacey Abrams, man. She did some good work in Georgia.
Listen, I'm really happy with the work she did. I think she's a huge reason why Georgia turned blue. But yeah, I think maybe starting a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, I'm like, oh, she's not as progressive as I thought she was.
Yeah. That was obvious to me. There's a lot of people from 2018 that have turned around and just disappointed me. Like I thought Beto was better too.
A little. I a little better. Yeah.
I drank the Kool-Aid on Beto. I drank the Kool-Aid on Beto.
I drank it. I actually donated to Beto's campaign when he was going against Ted Cruz. That's how much I hate Ted Cruz.
Same here.
It wasn't for
Same here.
It was for the fact that I hate Ted Cruz that much. I think we drank the Kool-Aid in the sense where it was like, we can get Ted Cruz out of the Senate. Like, I think that's what it more was. And he did flirt with progressive ideas, but I don't think he ever like fully embraced them.
No.
Someone like Pete Buttigieg was Medicare for all for a little bit, from what I remember, and then
he was. But Buttigieg is such a phony. Like,
people like that who like back off of Medicare for all and those type of ideas.
You mean like our vice president, like our courageous leader?
Yes.
You know, this wonderful woman. Like in the pantheon of black women, there's Harriet Tubman, Beyonce, and Kamala. Like that's the holy grail there of black women, right?
She's the most liberal person. She's the most
she's just a Marxist. She's just a Marxist that's going to basically take us all. She's going to turn us all into Venezuela. Yeah, and she's gonna unlock all of the black people she locked up in California. She's just going to release them to the streets because all of the black people that are locked up are just terrible thugs that are just going to bring chaos to the streets, right?
She locked up the same ones that she.
Oh yeah, all those kids and parents that she locked up on truancy violations and stuff. Yeah, those. Right. Yeah, those. But it's like, it's understanding power, man, and that's the biggest thing for me. Like, and that's the most frustrating part about talking to and dealing with progressives is that I just really feel like progressives don't understand where power in politics really comes from, right?
I think they do. I think that's why you've seen AOC. Like, AOC's kind of buttered up to Nancy a little bit. I mean, she hasn't gone full throttle at Nancy, but I think a lot of it has to do with she realizes that she's going to have to negotiate with Nancy, and she's going to have to deal with Nancy whether she likes it or not.
Yeah,
I think the squad, all of them, have done a phenomenal job of playing the game. I really do. I
disagree with you on that.
I think right now they're outnumbered. Let's just be honest. How many progressives do we really have in the Senate or in the House?
Not a lot. Not a lot.
So how you can't play the numbers game. You have to negotiate with them at some point. You have to be pragmatic in your views. To me, I think that sometimes, or most of the time, change happens slowly. Like, you can't just get in there and be like, we demand this, we demand this, we demand that. I won my district. Look at me now. When, let's be honest, we as a Democratic Party voted for a centrist candidate. A lot of people who live in the middle of the country are Democrats, but they're more centrist. So we would like to think that large portion of this country is progressive, but I don't really think they are as progressive as we think as they are sometimes. Yes, we can sub the idea that Medicare for all is very popular, but at the same time, I think it's, with these polling, how are the questions being asked? It's not being asked, do you support Medicare for all? It's being asked, well, do you support healthcare for everybody or socialized medicine, X, Y, Z? I think the way that it's asked is the components of Medicare for all, but the term Medicare for all does turn off a lot of people. So for me, I'm for what the amount of numbers and the amount of people they have in Congress, I think they're doing as good of a job as they could possibly do, because they really can't affect too much change with the amount of numbers they have.
They can't. My only issue is I don't think they've done a good. And I don't mean this that they haven't fallen in line or they haven't played the game. I think if you're them, I think you got to go harder, man. Like, too much mama bear shit. Too much, we're all going to wear the white outfits, all of that shit. And it's like, at the end of the day, what does she do? Anytime she wants to stab a progressive in the back, she's going to. So you gained nothing. Like, sometimes you have to understand the enemy. Your enemy, people need to understand that as a progressive, my enemy is establishment Democrats. It's not Republicans. It's establishment Dems. They're my enemy because they do the more to obstruct my beliefs than a Republican ever will, right? In this sense, right? In this sense, right? Like, too much of this, like, mama bear shit, and she's the mama bear of the Democratic Party, and we love. No, this woman does not care about you. She doesn't give a shit about you. She hates you. She hates your guts, and you know why she hates your guts? Because you're a threat to her power base. Again, there goes that word, power.
Yeah.
She understands, like Nancy Pelosi, people like this, they understand how power works. And I feel like progressive because we're too idealistic in a lot of ways, myself included. Like, I feel like sometimes we're too much ideologues and we don't understand how politics actually works. And we don't understand that this shit is a fucking hustle, man. You got to hustle this shit. And
I agree, but I think that just takes time.
It does take time, and it is a numbers game. Yeah. What you said is absolutely right.
Yeah, because the Green New Deal has been discussed in debates, like these candidates. I just watched this guy. I forgot his name. The guy Ossoff, his name, from Georgia. Who's
Ossoff? Yeah.
I mean, he was asked, "Do you support the Green New Deal? Do you support Medicare for all?" Surprise.
Beto Jr. He's Beto Jr.
Yeah, he said no. He's someone I know. Yes, I want him to win Georgia, and I want the Senate to flip. But he's someone who's not going to be on our side at all with anything. No. But just the fact that that's in conversation, that's a victory to me, because that would not be discussed if it wasn't for AOC, Ilhan Omar, presidency.
Yeah. True.
The fact that those policies are even being discussed. I mean, the Green New Deal, it was picked apart by the right and even by some people on the left. But the fact that it was out there for people to read and discuss and it's still a talking point, that's a victory, man. It's just going to take some time for us to catch up to that. And
I agree with you.
I've noticed a lot in politics. These things just take time.
They take time. Obviously, look, we'll probably be in our 50s and 60s by the time half of the fucking policies we want will be passed. Like, I'm convinced of that.
Yeah.
But the fight is everything, right? I just feel like we see the same thing. We just have different ways of going about it. Like, I want to adopt, from a progressive standpoint, I want to adopt more of the Tea Party. The Tea Party did not give a fuck. They didn't care who they pissed off in the establishment. They came into Congress not wanting to make friends, not wanting to butter up to people. If they had to stand on the Senate floor or on and go for hours upon hours to make their points and their ballot measures and all these other things that the Tea Party did, because they understood the messaging and they understood that the real way you change is you make people feel uncomfortable. And I feel like that's the same way progressives have to go about it. Like, none of this mama bear shit with Nancy and Uncle Chuck. Fuck that. These people don't care about you. Like, they will squash you in a second.
I just feel like the Tea Party was more representative of the Republican base than the progressive movement is representative of the Democratic base right now.
True. In hindsight, yes. I think at the time, though, people did not see it that way. I think over time now we do see that the Tea Party was more representative of the base.
Yeah.
And to be clear, like, I think the country's progressive on economic issues. I just don't think I don't think we're progressive on social issues. That's the problem.
I think it's reverse. I think for the most part we are progressive on social issues, man. I think there's a large contingency of the country that's still holding on to, like, the conservative, like, I wouldn't say values, I wouldn't consider values, but the conservative mindset of social issues. I mean, Black Lives Matter now is like it's more popular. The approval rating of Black Lives Matter is in positives now, like as it was before. LGBTQ issues, people are more understanding of that. Trans, people's idea of, like, the transsexual communities, everyone understands that now. Like, I feel like socially, I feel like we're more on the progressive side. I just think a lot of people, and this is, let's just be honest, like, white people make up most of this country. So a lot of, like, the tone of this country has to do with what white people think. And I think
white women specifically.
That too. And I feel like a lot of white people who aren't racist, like, look at my things like Black Lives Matter and whatever, and they might be down and understand the cause, but the way protesting makes them, like, anxious, or protesting makes them uncomfortable. Saying things like defund the police makes them uncomfortable. So therefore they kind of just push back and they just kind of go, all right, we'll see what happens. You know what I mean? Like, they're not going to fight with us. And push at us. They're not going to do it. They're not going to advocate for us. They're not going to do anything. They're just going to fall back and be like, all right, well, yeah, it is bad that black men are being killed by the police and the criminal justice system disproportionately, sentences black men and women to they understand all that, but they're not going to do anything at all
because it doesn't affect them. It doesn't affect you on a personal level. Exactly. It doesn't affect your material conditions on a personal level. Like, my biggest frustration, though, is, people get caught up on terms and slogans and words. And this is where I'll even go against myself on the whole messaging thing, because messaging is definitely important. But I do think that you also have to decipher bullshit. And again, what's the easiest way to attack? They can't attack defund the police on its merits. So what's the easiest way to attack it on? Defund. Defund. Oh my God, how do you say defund? Well, what do you do if you get rid? It's semantic, right? You make these semantical arguments to actually take away the attention of the actual issues being discussed with this. Like defund the police. Like, okay, on the surface, yes, defund. What do you mean defund? I'm not saying abolish. I'm saying defunding. Well, what do you mean by defunding? And if you actually showed people and talked to people and said, hey, well, this is what we mean. And I know that a lot of people have tried this, right? But again, there goes that messaging thing. And this is on the opposite end of the messaging, right? Where you take one point from the conservative side, right? They know they're not going to win the argument for defunding the police on the actual merits. So we're going to take one element of that and flip it, defund, right? Oh, you want to abolish the police? Oh, you guys are anarchists. Oh, the left is a bunch of Antifa lovers and all this other shit, right? Because again, they know they're not going to win the argument on merit.
Right.
So how do we how do we devalue it, right? By just focusing on a phrase.
Also making it an uncomfortable social issue is better for conservatives.
Right.
Because even though people might not agree with conservatives, they're not going to fight against conservatives because it's uncomfortable to do so. So making anything uncomfortable is an advantage for the conservatives. When we make things uncomfortable as progressives, it's a disadvantage to us because even though we might have allies in their hearts or in their minds, a lot of people are not going to come out. So, and I think that's what Republicans do really well. Like they just make things uncomfortable. And when push comes to shove, when some white people get uncomfortable, they just kind of fall back and, you know, they might think the right things, they may feel the right things, but they just end up being a bystander.
I agree. And it's like, again, you're focusing on defunding the police, but we're not focusing on what we're actually talking about, which is why does the education department for a local municipality have a $50 million budget while the police has a $330 million budget? And I think that if you actually presented people with that, they'd be like, oh, yeah, why is that? You know, why is it that, you know,
right? But
such and such has this.
But in the same breath, they go like, but why do you have to say defund? Can we say something else? and then we'll find something else. And then Republicans will find a way to make it uncomfortable.
But had we focused on what we call a movement or a slogan or whatever, like Black Lives Matter. Remember Black Lives Matter was what do you mean black? What do you mean black? White lives matter. Asian lives matter,
all
right?
Lives matter.
All lives matter, right?
Yeah,
Remember that, right? Remember that used to be a talking point. That used to actually be a debate, like a thorough debate.
But also because for white people who aren't racist, it's uncomfortable to utter those words. Even if they know what it means.
But see,
even
but that's
we agree with it
because it's uncomfortable. White uncomfortable. But see, but I feel like sometimes you got to make these white people uncomfortable.
Well, yeah, obviously. I mean,
you absolutely do. You gotta fucking absolutely. You gotta make these motherfuckers uncomfortable. Absolutely, you gotta make people uncomfortable, man. And that's the problem. I think for too long, progressives, black people, people of color, minorities, wherever you want to go down the line, the spectrum, we've been afraid to make white people uncomfortable because, oh my God, we can't make white people uncomfortable. White women, what will they think? Oh my God, what do they look at us as? No, fuck that. It's time to have uncomfortable conversations. It's time to piss people off. It's time to, you know, people start thinking of things from a different perspective. And again, it's not going to work overnight. Nothing's going to change overnight. Rome wasn't built in a day. This country doesn't change in a day. Certainly in a 10-year period, at least it doesn't. You know, it takes time. Movements take time. But yeah, man, I just think that we got to be able to be cool with making people be uncomfortable. And I think that once we figure that part out, I think we'll be in a much better position right now. Instead of trying to play footsies with Nancy Pelosi, instead of trying to play footsies with white people that are not gonna play ball because ruthless, bro.
Just to circle back around, what makes Republicans so good at politics is their ruthlessness, and that's what you want to see from the progressive wing of the Democrats.
From our side of things, we need our own Donald Trump. Obviously not the racism and the demagoguery part, right? But the messaging and the part of Donald Trump that was so masterful at speaking truth to power. Like he didn't give a fuck who Jeb Bush was. Like Bush is like before 2015, the Bush name, the Jeb Bush. How dare you say something bad about Jeb Bush, right? And then it was like, no, this guy's an idiot. His brother got us into a war. He's low energy. He's boring. Like he's the lesser of the two Bushes. Like, and everybody was like, oh shit. He said the quiet part out loud.
But I feel like that thing is turns off the Democratic base, though. You get what I'm saying?
I don't think it does, bro. I
just use that. I think someone.
I mean, it may turn off the MSNBC crowd, maybe.
That's a huge portion of the base.
That is a huge portion of it.
The Democratic base.
That is a huge portion of it. But I don't know, man. I just feel like again, there goes that thing of like, you know what? Maybe they need to be pissed off a little bit. Maybe, but I think that there's a skillful way of doing it. Like I think Trump showed that there's a skillful way of doing it. I feel like there's more progressives than I think even establishment media want to admit. Like I think it's pretty much 50-50 progressives and that establishment MSNBC tech.
Just because of the age, I think it's like 60-40 with progressives coming up more. Just because there's a lot of older Democrats, man. Like,
right.
I mean, Joe Biden doesn't get the presidency the way he did if there weren't more of moderate Dems than they are.
There are a lot of moderate Dems, and there's a lot of suburban Dems. We're catching up. I think there's a way of doing it. There's not. Look, all of what I'm saying, none of this is perfect. None of this is science. Like, there's no exact science to this stuff. But I do think that you do have to try it. And I think we do need our own Donald Trump. I really believe that. I think we need our own guy that's going to be not afraid to speak truth to power. That's not going to be afraid to ruffle feathers and say, look, why the fuck don't we have this? Why the fuck don't we have that? And, all this bullshit that the Democratic Party, as much as I love Bernie was like, oh, my friends, the Democrats, my friends, the establishment. I'm a revolutionary, but he's friends with Joe Biden. You can't be a revolutionary and be friends.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So you're saying on that debate stage, because Bernie was very diplomatic. Bernie would say, I believe this, I believe in this. He's my friend. I just have some disagreements. He tried to be very serious. You're saying someone who would get on that stage, say the same thing Bernie's saying, be like, no, this right here.
Right. On policy, on point. But from the messaging perspective, bro, like, you got to be like, look at what Elizabeth Warren did to him. His friend Elizabeth, right? And when she saw an opening, when she tried to butter up to the establishment, she basically called him a sexist. Like,
and then got the whole Democratic base behind her.
Exactly.
Which is wild.
But this is why I say you gotta be fucking ruthless, bro. Like, these people don't care. These people don't care, bro. They don't care. They will do whatever it takes to amass as much power as they can. And I think that once progressives understand that and understand that that's how you play this game, and I'm not saying it's the right way to play it. I'm not saying that in a perfect world we wouldn't do this shit on the up and ups, but unfortunately, this is the game we call American politics. And either you got to play it that way and play it to win, or you're going to get left behind.
Right.
That's how I feel.
Okay.
That's how I feel, man.
I'm with it. I'm with it. I'm with it. I get what you're saying. I do see pragmatically the need. Obviously, don't call Nancy Pelosi Mama Bear, but I do pragmatically see the need to negotiate and have at least a working relationship with them. But to your point, the Nancy Pelosi's of the world don't give a fuck about the progressive wing of the party.
They don't care, man. They don't care. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. All right, man. Let's move on to some sports. I figured we start this week with the NBA, since the draft is coming up this Wednesday, free agency soon after. Let's start with the draft. Are you looking forward to this draft? Because I don't know, maybe because it's the time of the year where it's coming up. It's like mid-November. Like, I dead ass forgot the fucking draft was even coming up. Like, I had to watch a commercial this week to even like, oh shit, the draft is coming up. Like, that's where I'm at right now with the NBA as far as the draft goes. But are you into this draft? Do you think this draft will be a very good draft? What are your thoughts on this draft so far?
I'll be honest with you, man. I don't really know. I mean, you got to understand that, like, the college season was cut short, so I don't really know how these guys play too much. I mean,
and that's a point that's not to cut you off real quick, but that's a point that's not being elaborated enough in mainstream media. That, how are we judging these? I mean, a lot of these dudes haven't played since March.
How am I supposed to judge James Wiseman? The guy played like 2 games at Memphis and then was like suspended the rest of the year. Anthony Edwards played for this underwhelming Georgia team. We didn't see him play in the tournament, so I have no idea how he's going to be. And then half of the prospects played overseas in games on TV that we didn't even see. Like, so I don't know who's who. Like, obviously I can go back on the tape and watch and say, oh, this guy has some land. He can shoot the basketball. Look at his stats. Oh, he shot the 3 pretty well. Oh, he's a good defender. Cool. Like, but as far as like watching these people play and having an eye test, I really don't know a lot of these players. So going into it, like, I just think my lack of interest is down. I mean, from a standpoint of being a Knicks fan, obviously we have the 8th pick, so I'm like looking forward to seeing who they get. But, aside from that, like, it's hard to tell what kind of impact this draft class is going to have on the NBA, if any. To be honest with you, I don't know. From what I hear, the next 2 draft classes coming up are going to be substantially better than this one. So it just kind of seems like this one is going to be on the side of like a weaker draft class. I'm not really sure though. I do a freaking basketball podcast and I do it religiously, and I still don't know much about these.
Yeah. No, I get it.
Place of ignorance, and I'm admitting it.
No, absolutely, I'm a college basketball nut, and even I will say that I think that this draft will be. This is where you'll see if these NBA scouts, these people that evaluate and consume this shit every day, now they're gonna have to earn their money, because essentially a lot of these dudes have not played since March, so. Obviously, scouting is going to be a big deal, because all the scouting that has been done all the way up from what these kids were in middle school to now, or at least till March, and obviously a little bit of what they can watch and see. And I'm sure these teams are having private workouts. They're going.
Yeah, but also how hard did LaMelo Ball, for instance, work during the pandemic? We don't know. We don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't know.
Some people could have fell off. Some people could have got out of shape. Some people could have gotten better shape. Some people could have worked harder than others.
Right.
It's just so so random to me, and
it's hard to evaluate. Yeah.
Yeah, for me to give an analysis this is I can't in good conscience do that. So watching and saying, all right, well, let's see what happens, because I have no idea. True.
No, you're right. You're right. I've seen a couple of these guys play, but I can't sit there and tell you that I know. I do like James Wiseman. The little bit that I saw him play,
I like him
I saw a lot of his high school film, his tapes, his mixtapes. Obviously, you can't judge an NBA prospect by mixtapes or hype tapes. That being said, I think James Wiseman, to me, has the most upside in this draft as far as a guy who can be a truly transcendent player. LaMelo Ball, I don't see it. I don't see it.
He's good.
I just don't see it, man.
He's more aggressive than his brother Lonzo, which to me, I think if Lonzo had LaMelo's aggressiveness, Lonzo would be borderline all-star. I think Lonzo really is that talented and that good. He sees the floor that well, and he's good defensively. But I don't, like I said, I haven't seen enough of LaMelo Ball in-game action to know, how do you react to a double team? How well do you read the pick and roll? How well do you see the weak side defender off the pick and roll? Are you able to make that pass? Are you able to make the right decision? I don't know that about LaMelo. I just know his skill set, because all you can find of him are highlight reels, And I'm just gonna be honest with you, I'm not going into YouTube deep diving into LaMelo Ball film breakdown.
Right. And plus those highlight tapes make the worst of player look like a fucking baller, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I could watch a game. I could watch one or two games of somebody. I know this. A lot of people are gonna push back on this with me, but I could watch.
I know what you're saying.
Someone and be like, okay, I have a
same here
on you.
Same here.
I know what type of decisions you make. I know how you react to certain situations. I know your shot selection. I have a good grasp on you. And with this draft class, I haven't really been able to do that. So I don't know what to expect.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm with you on that point too. I can watch one or two games, and I know exactly. Full disclosure, I am a Lonzo Ball fan. I watched two games of his in college. I watched 2 games of him in college. One against Kentucky. I know it's the infamous game that De'Aaron Fox didn't play. Everybody brings that up as, that was his crowning moment, even though De'Aaron Fox didn't play, whatever. And then they bring up the tournament where the tournament game where De'Aaron Fox did play as some sort of referendum on Lonzo being over. Yeah, right. That being said, Lonzo, I love Lonzo in college. I just thought, man, this kid's got all the tools. I agree with you. He's not as aggressive as he should be. I think his personality is a little passive, too passive at times. His brother, he's good. He's talented. He's better offensively, but
skilled. He's more skilled.
He's more skilled, but I don't know. There's something about LaMelo that it just has never really been to me.
Well,
I don't know. We'll see.
I was introduced to LaMelo with him taking literally half court jump shots in a half court set, literally coming past half court and just launching it for no evident reason. So my first impression of him, and this is him in 9th grade, to be fair to him, he could have evolved. I don't know. To me, it's well, you're you might be talented, but I don't want my point guard shooting from freaking 40 feet. I know Damian Lillard and Steph Curry do it, but
but not everybody's Damian Lillard or Steph Curry, right?
Yeah. I don't want to see that. I want to see my point guard, create offense, create for others. And I have seen tape of LaMelo do that as he's gotten older, but I think that's where you're coming from, because I still have that in my head with him as well.
Yeah. Is there any other prospects is there a prospect that intrigues you, at least from what you've seen, from what you know?
Yeah. And Killian Hayes, he's a point guard. He intrigues me. He has height. He's lefty. And this is just being a Knicks fan. I had to do research on who they might get. And I I don't think they're going to get him. I think he's going to get snatched up maybe a pick or two before. But, I grew up playing point guard. I love a pass-first point guard. I love someone who creates for others. And I don't think he's a pass-first point guard to say, but he does read the pick and roll well from film that I've seen. And this is just film. It's not game action. He can shoot the basketball. He shoots over 90% from the free throw line, which I think is a good good sign for someone that young. I think that shows, like, I know it sounds silly, but it shows someone who's like dedicated. It shows someone who has work ethic, because that's habitual, going to the free throw line and shooting. So I like a lot what I see from him. I hear he's a good defender. He has length, and the Knicks haven't had a good point guard in a long time. So that's who I want the Knicks to grab. He's the one who intrigues me the most. And him and Obi Toppin from.
Yeah, I love Obi Toppin. That's my guy. Outside of Wiseman, I like Obi Toppin. I think it's just something about him that sticks out every time you watch him. I watched a couple of his games in Dayton, and I really, really, really like what I saw. I think he's a guy that he's just one of those guys that you just know he's going to play in the league for 15 years.
Exactly.
He's just, I like Obi Toppin a lot. I'm surprised he's not getting more love. But yeah. Everybody else, man, I'm with you, man. There's some I do think that this draft, while it's not going to be high, and I always feel like sometimes people say, like, oh, this draft's not great because it doesn't have the star power that certain drafts have, or it doesn't have the big names that stand out. Like, oh, that guy went to Duke, or that guy went to this place, or that one. You know what I mean? So I think that's why sometimes I feel like people judge drafts on, like, oh, this draft is better than others. I don't think this draft is going to be as good as next year's draft, or even the following year. But I do think this draft will be a draft where you'll see a stud snatched up in the second round. I think this is one of those drafts where you'll find good value throughout. So if you're a team, even like the Knicks, you may be able to find a really great player at 8. I think this is going to be one of those drafts. Yeah.
And even at the end of the first round, they have 2 first rounds.
Absolutely. So
a lot of people are going to be overlooked. I agree with you on that. That's a good point.
A lot of cats are going to be overlooked. Who knows? I think Killian Hayes might be there for the Knicks.
He might.
I don't know.
I mean,
we'll see.
Projected to go anywhere from like 6 to 8. So.
Yeah. But then the other thing with the Knicks, of course, is they screw it up. They'll have Killian Hayes there, and draft Manuel Brown from Tacoma Community College or some shit.
They'll draft Killian Hayes and then package him in a deal for Westbrook or something like that. Like, this is.
Oh yeah. But that too.
Leon Rose, the new day, baby. I'm hopping on board.
Let's hope. Let's hope for your sake. Let's hope for your sake. Let's hope. So this draft, obviously, we talked about the draft from as far as the prospects goes, but what about the trades and the rumors that you're hearing about this draft? Because there's a lot of stuff. I don't know what to believe. It's kind of up in the air on everything that you're hearing. You're hearing that Golden State's going to – one day you hear Golden State's going to hang on to the number 2 pick. Then you hear that they're going to basically package it for whatever star they can get their hands on. What do you think? You buying or selling half of this shit that you're hearing with the draft? And I know a lot of this is also pre-draft stuff that you hear every year, but how much of this are you actually buying?
I'm selling, man. I think it's a good possibility that Russell gets traded. That's like the one player I think can get traded. But like Golden State, I think they should take James Wiseman if he's there. I think he fits in perfectly. They need a big guy who can rim protect and be versatile, and I think he's someone who can do that. I'm not really sure how he guards the pick and roll. I'm sure if he's second pick of the draft and he's being touted this highly, he can guard it pretty well because big men need to do it these days. And I think they're missing. That's what they're missing. You have your Draymond, you have your Clay, you have your Steph, but you're going to the days where they were dominating, they had like the Bogats and the Looney, like you need that. And I think he can bring that to you. So I think they hold.
And it's the perfect situation for him too. It's the perfect situation because he could come in. He doesn't have to be the guy right away.
You don't have 20 and 10. We don't need that from you. Just give us 10 and 5 and guard the rim. Just do that. Just do that.
Absolutely.
I think there's a possibility that Russell Westbrook gets traded. I don't know to who though. So I mean, I know Charlotte's interested. It wouldn't surprise me if Jordan pulls the trigger on that. I don't think the Knicks are going to trade for Russell. And these Harden deals with Brooklyn, I don't see that happening.
Well, let's talk about it. So the Rockets look. Are you buying something that the Rockets are going to blow it up? And
I do, yes.
And where do you see Harden and Westbrook going? Because to me, if you get a Westbrook, then you might as well just get rid of Harden and just blow it up. Because to me, what else are you going to be able to do with Harden that, like, I don't know, like I hate when these teams kind of halfway blow it up. Like to me, you either blow it up or you don't. Like either try to once Westbrook says he wants out, PJ Tucker wants out. All these guys are starting to they see the writings on the wall. I think they're going to blow it up. That being said, what can you do from a deal perspective to get the best return back? Does Westbrook bring you a lot back?
No, that contract.
That contract is too much. Yeah,
it's too much. You're gonna have to compensate the team that you're giving Westbrook for because of the contract. You're gonna have to go. Well, here's a draft pick because we know you're
take on another bad contract.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know what Russell could bring, but James can bring a lot, and I don't think the Brooklyn deal is going to happen. But if I was the Rockets, that's the team I'm targeting because you can get Karis LeVert, you can get Spencer Dinwiddie, you can get some picks. Like, Brooklyn has a lot to offer, and I think personally, I think it's a mistake if Brooklyn goes after James Harden. I just think that's way too many mouths to feed. The egos there just do not mesh. I think Kyrie and Durant to begin with are going to be kind of difficult to juggle.
I agree.
James Harden, and then on top of that, you have Steve Nash, who's never coached a day in his life, like
dealing with those personalities. Yeah,
come on, like that's
a lot.
That's a disaster waiting to happen. Like you're going to beat the New York Knicks by 37, but against good teams, against better teams in the league, like you're going to crumble. So I don't see the Nets particularly doing that. But if I'm the Rockets, that's the team I'm targeting because I feel like you can get the most back from the Nets immediately. Like Karis LeVert is he's a starter in this league for his prime. So Spencer Dinwiddie too. I mean, he could have started on any other team. In the league. Like, he might not start with the Nets, but he could start on any other team in the league. So.
If not Brooklyn, who?
I don't know. I actually haven't even thought too much into that, if I'm completely honest with you. I saw the Nets rumors, and now it's just like, nah, this is not happening. Who do you think?
I'm looking up trade packages right now. I mean, I just obviously the James Harden thing really kind of came to pass over the last 24 hours, so I haven't had much of a time to really think about it as well. But yeah, I just don't see a team that makes a lot of sense for James Harden. I mean, sure, you put James Harden on a lot of teams, he makes them better. Yeah, I mean, Brooklyn, I'm with you. Brooklyn to me would be an absolute disaster. I'm with you 100%. I mean, the Brooklyn thing, I mean, I kind of want to see it from a train wreck perspective, but I think, of course, I want to see it from a train wreck perspective, right? I host a podcast. What else we host a podcast from a train wreck perspective? Yeah, we live for this shit, right? Narratives galore. Can you imagine Embrace Debate television? Oh my God. It's going to be sickening. Yeah, there's a lot of rumors going around. There's a package right now. See, so I'll throw this out here. There's a trade idea involving the Celtics, Rockets, and Suns. 3-team trade. James Harden and Robert Covington to the Celtics. DeAndre Ayton. So the Rockets get. So all right, James Harden and Robert Covington to the Celtics. The Suns get Kemba Walker, Gordon Hayward, and Daniel Tice. And then the Rockets get DeAndre Ayton, Ricky Rubio, Kelly Oubre, Romeo Langford, Grant Williams, Carson Edwards, a 2020 Phoenix, a lot, a 2020 first round pick from the Suns, a 2020 the Memphis Grizzlies first round pick, the 2020 Boston Celtics first round pick, a 2020 Milwaukee Bucks first round pick, and a 2022 Boston Celtics first round pick.
That is absurd. See,
if I'm the Rockets and you're blowing it up,
I do that.
I would do that. I would do that trade. And for the Celtics, the only thing I don't like about it from the Celtics perspective is how does he fit with? See, to me, James Harden could probably have the same effect. He doesn't fit on Boston, and he would actually have some of the similar effects that kind of Kyrie had on the Celtics. So I'm not sure. See, every James Harden deal I love from the Rockets perspective. I don't love from the James Harden perspective.
It's what kind of player is Harden going to be from this point on? Because D'Antoni turned into like an isolation specialist point guard, but he wasn't that before D'Antoni moved down. So, maybe Brad Stevens has visions of him playing the wing. I don't know, but right now to me, Boston is only a big guy away. For them to blow it up.
I agree.
Is so effing stupid. Like, so stupid. You just need a big guy. Get a big guy who can protect the rim and be serviceable. That's it. Just do that. So that's I don't see that trade happening. And this sounds kind of weird, but Harden doesn't play like a Celtic. Does that make sense? Like Kyrie doesn't play like a Celtic, and I don't mean it in a way that's like derogatory or insulting.
Or coded. Yeah,
or coded. I don't mean that. He just. Brad Stevens, Celtic basketball, move the basketball. Yeah. Everyone has their role. Everyone knows their part, and that's not James Harden.
What I'll ask fans is, does James Harden make the Celtics infinitely better?
If you're giving that up, no.
I mean, I'm not sure how he fits with Jason Tatum. I'm not sure how he fits with Jaylen Brown.
Yeah.
Marcus Smart. I mean, I mean, are they? Yeah, I agree with you, man. I don't think it's an upgrade for the Celtics. I mean, yeah, they'll be better. I mean, because James Harden.
I don't know if they would be better, man. You're giving up Gordon Hayward, who, let's be honest, he hasn't been too great for Boston. He was better last year, and Kemba, who, listen, he struggled.
He was a disappointment.
But not during the season.
On face value alone, right? You would think that James Harden's going to. I mean, James Harden is a better basketball player than Kemba Walker and Gordon Hayward, right? Just talent alone, right? Now, obviously, that's not everything. That's not the whole ball of wax. Right. But on talent alone, he's better. So does he make the Celtics better from a talent perspective? Yes. Does he make them better from a team perspective? Not quite. Because I don't know what his role is, and also how does he fit with the two young studs that you have already in place? Right. And it still doesn't solve. Although I do like I keep calling him Rodney for some reason. Robert Covington. I like Robert Covington going to the Celtics. I think he brings a lot to the Celtics. Robert Covington is one of those guys you can plug on any team, and he just
about to say that
he adds anything.
Every single team in the league he fits on.
Absolutely. So from
picking him up was like the downfall. But
stupid. Shout out to Elton Brand. Robert Covington on the Celtics would be and Taurean Prince and Jared Allen. Actually, this is the second trade that I'm looking at. So this is the second kind of mock trade. So same teams except for Phoenix swapped out for Brooklyn. So Brooklyn gets James Harden, obviously. Celtics get Spencer Dinwiddie, Robert Covington, Taurean Prince, Jared Allen. And then, of course, the Rockets get Gordon Hayward, Karis LeVert, Carson Edwards, Vincent Poirier, a 2020 Memphis first-round pick, the 2020 Boston Celtics first-round pick, the 2020 Bucks pick, the 2020 Nets first-round pick, and a pick swap with Brooklyn in either 2022, 2024, and 2026. And I actually like this. Kemba stays.
That I say yes to that in a heartbeat if I'm the Celtics.
This is actually a good trade.
And the Rockets, I say yes. It's just
if you're the Rockets, I think probably this is the best deal you can probably make. There's one more trade package here, but yeah, from the Celtics, you're getting Spencer Dinwiddie, Robert Covington, and Jared Allen. Yeah, that fills a need. Honestly, I think the Celtics might even win this trade even more so than the Rockets.
They all win that trade except the Nets.
They all win except yeah, basically. There's a pattern there, right? Yeah. And then, of course, there's a final. And this one, Celtics, Rockets, and Clippers now. So the Clippers get James Harden. Why would the Clippers do that? And then the Celtics get Robert Covington, Lou Williams, Zubac, and Landry Shamet. And then the Rockets get Gordon Hayward, Patrick Beverley, a 2020 Memphis pick, a 2020 Celtics pick, 2020 Bucks pick, and a 2022 Celtics first-round pick. I mean, again, good deals for Boston Rockets, and then the team that gets James Harden.
Spots for James Harden, I like the Clippers the best out of the three. Because you have James Harden run the point. The Clippers need a point guard. They don't really have a point guard who can create. James can create at least. You can say that about James. He's not a bad creator. He doesn't get the ball, but Kawhi can adapt to that. It's just defensively, you're not going to be as good. You're giving up a lot defensively. But, then again, last year, the Clippers were supposed to be the best defensive team we've ever seen, and they weren't that at all. So I don't think it's a trade that, I would look to do if I was Jerry West. But I don't think out of the three deals, if I was going to accept James Harden, it would be the Clippers.
Yeah, I disagree. To me, I don't know. I mean, honestly, I don't like any of these trades involving James Harden from the team that's acquiring James Harden. I just don't see the value.
Right.
And I know people are going to listen to this and be like, what? The James Harden sycophants out there. I just don't see the value. Like, if you're the Clippers, does he make you I mean, I agree with you conceptually that, yes, he can run the point, and out of the three teams, he probably fits better there than he would in Brooklyn. But that being said, can you imagine that locker room with James Harden, Paul George, Montrez, Kawhi?
I don't think they would keep Paul George if they got James Harden. I think they would ship him. Especially if you trade like Shamet and all those other role players, I think they would ship Paul George for other role players as well.
So you'd have to ship Paul George. But I'm just working off the assumption of this trade as we see it constructed. Okay. This has Paul George staying on the Clippers. Now, of course, like you said, the Clippers could flip Paul George later on. But that being said, let's just assume on this, right? Yeah, George, Harden, Kawhi.
just three.
Again, I still don't love it. I don't love it. And I don't love it because I don't think Harden is adaptable. I just don't. I think Harden's going to play the way he's always going to play. And I don't think he makes guys around him better. And now you're asking him to play with other superstars.
I don't think I agree with that. I think he does make players, but I think he gets a little bit of a rap. You got to understand he played in the offense where it's like, here, James, you take the ball, go to the top of the key and make something happen, shoot the ball. But he has shown the will at least, and he has court vision. He does get some triple doubles. He does pass the ball. He does seem to have a sense of how to run the pick and roll and make that pocket pass. So I do think he's better than most people think he is when it comes to distributing the basketball.
I have a very complex relationship with James Harden because I feel like James Harden is a stat sheet stuffer. Like he fills up stats, but are they really impact? His usage rate is crazy. Yeah. His numbers, his per average numbers are just incredible. That being said, again, stat sheet stuffer. You watch James Harden. I just watch James Harden. Does he make guys around him better? In my opinion, can you honestly say guys around him? Now, the system has made guys better. The D'Antoni system has made guys better. But it's James Harden himself, his style of play, the dribble, top of the key, step back three, dribble, drive to the lane, get fouled. Does that make better? And I just don't. I don't think it's made people better. And now you bring that style of play, which I would assume he will continue. And if you're James Harden, you scored 31 points a game. Why would you then transition to now?
I don't think that system follows James wherever he goes. I think he has to fit into whatever system's in place. So I don't think you see the same James Harden you saw in Houston.
Okay, but what's the Clippers system then? What's the Clippers?
One out. Right. I don't know what it's going to be. I mean, they have I have no idea how they're going to run their offense next year. Right. I really don't know. I mean, one thing I liked about the Clippers last year was the fact that I could envision them running a lot of different type of offenses. You could run the pick and roll game. You can have an isolation game. Like there was a lot of different things that they could do last year, especially with Lou Williams coming off the bench and Montrezl Harrell. Your second unit can have that pick and roll game with Montrezl Harrell, and then you can spread the floor with shooters with Shamat. Like they had so many different options.
They had so many different ones. Yeah.
I don't know where they're going to go this year. We got to see how the roster comes.
See, to me, I'm with you. If you get James Harden, you have to get rid of Paul George. I didn't like the Paul. I kept saying this all last year. It's crazy how all last year feels like 10 years ago. But I kept saying this in the lead up to the season starting last October, that I just didn't like the Paul George, Kawhi Leonard fit. To me, they're too much of the same player. A lot of it, when they were both on the court, I feel like they both took away from each other instead of adding to each other's games. Because again, it's too much of your turn, my turn, your turn, my turn, your turn, my turn.
They turned into that, yeah.
Right? And when they're too similar, right? I just feel like it takes away from each player's game because it's like you're trying to figure out where you stand. How can you impact the game? I feel like Kawhi is more adaptable because Kawhi has other facets to his game than, let's say, a Paul George.
Right.
But still, so to me, I think if you're going to make this trade, I think you have to trade Paul George somewhere, and maybe you can flip Paul George and get another point guard. Maybe you can get a big man. I don't know how that fit. I would assume there's still some value to Paul George out there. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't like the James Harden trade scenarios in any, and this is on fan sided, by the way. So they're just fans like us speculating, obviously. But any of these deals, just to me, don't really seem to make fit from. I like the James Harden trade scenarios from the Rockets' perspective because they're unloading James Harden, but I just don't see where James Harden really fits.
Yeah, anyway. I don't think he's going anywhere. I think they're going to fight like hell to trade Russ, and Russ wants out. But I think James Harden, if I was to put money on it, he's going to be a Houston Rocket to start the season.
A team that I do think would make sense for James Harden? Now, I don't think it'll happen, obviously, because I don't even think they have the assets to make it happen. But I think the Bucks make sense.
Really?
Yeah, I like James Harden on the Bucks because he's actually what they're missing.
I like CP3 on the Bucks.
I like that better. Yeah, I like that better. Yeah. Full disclosure, I like that better. Someone else who
can just take the basketball and go to work and create for others off the dribble and things like that. Yeah.
Right.
And they're such a good team defensively that anything that he gives up, I think they'd be able to make on the back end.
Right. So. Right. And that's why I like that. I think out of all the teams that would obviously be interested in James Harden, I think the Bucks make the most sense for me because I think that you put James Harden with Giannis. I think out of all the players that would that James Harden can complement, I think he would complement Giannis the best. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I get what you're saying.
with the pick and roll, to drive into the basket. Giannis, that's a free lane right there for Giannis to operate.
Giannis off the ball?
Yes. I would prefer to have Giannis off the ball, quite frankly.
Okay.
I think right now at his stage, now obviously Giannis is still young enough. I mean, it's crazy to think Giannis is still, 25, 26?
16 years old.
Yeah, 16 years old, right? Like, Giannis is still young enough where eventually he can develop those traits that we're looking for him as far as a ball handler, but right now he doesn't have that. So I think that, to me, you have to complement Giannis in every way you can. So by having a guy who can take pressure off him to having to create his shots plus shots for others, if you have a guy like James Harden, now obviously this is all contingent on what they would have to give up. And from a cap perspective too. So I don't know how I don't know the cap that well. So we'd have to get an expert here to discuss it. But I think if I'm Milwaukee, I'm calling Houston. Like, what do I have to do? Even if I have to involve a third team, which would probably be the case for Milwaukee. I don't know. Again, I don't know what their cap situation is. I would assume that if you're making, let's say, just play this out. If James Harden,
Middleton's max.
Yeah, Middleton would have to be involved. Bledsoe. I would say Bledsoe or Middleton, one or the other. Well, but if you're the Rockets, you're
making a max. I'm not sure what Bledsoe's contract's like. I would have to look at it.
Well, didn't Bledsoe signed an extension last year, right? So, yeah. If we have time, I'll play around with it on the trade machine. But if that's the one team that sticks out to me right now that makes most sense to me from a trade partner perspective, because any other team,
Giannis needs a sidekick. I mean, let's be honest. Chris Middleton is nice. He's cool, but he's not a 2. He's more of like a 3. Like, if you're gonna have like a big 3, so that doesn't make sense. You're not forcing him in a situation where he's not going to succeed. Like, the Bucks need a point guard too. They don't really have a true point guard. James Harden has proven he could play point guard, or at least that swing guard position, better than whoever the Bucks have. So that makes sense to me.
How about Philly? How about Philly for James Harden?
No. The ball needs to be in Ben Simmons' hands.
Well, if you trade Ben Simmons.
So you put Ben Simmons in a part of that deal, you send him over to Houston? Yeah. Daryl Morey loves him. I mean, I'm sure that will start flying.
It's not. Yeah, I'm surprised it hasn't already, to be honest with you. Philly makes more sense to me than Brooklyn.
Brooklyn doesn't make any sense to me.
No, Brooklyn to me, that's just wanting.
Let's stack talent and try to win a championship. That's what it sounds like.
It's basically what it is. It absolutely is what it is. And again, first year head coach. I know it's Steve Nash, but first year head coach. To me, you're bringing in a personality like Harden into your locker room with KD. And the other thing about it is KD and Kyrie are 2 sensitive superstars. I don't get the sense that they're leaders necessarily. Like. No. And then you bring in a James, and then you bring in a James Harden. Yeah, that whole shit right there just has to just has the ability to just blow up in your face. So I don't know, man. I think I don't know. That one doesn't work for me. Anything else from free agency that you're looking at? How do you like the Dennis Schroeder trade or the unannounced?
Love it for the Lakers. Absolutely love the Lakers. I mean, this man, just instant offense off the bench. Already better than any point guard they have on the roster. I know Rondo played very well for the Lakers down the stretch and in the finals and in the playoffs, but instant upgrade at that position. I know Caruso, Laker fans love Caruso, but I'm talking from an offensive perspective. Mm-hmm. Just gives them another option, another person to go to, which I think, it sounds weird, but I think that's what they were lacking. I think a lot of the times they got stagnant because they just relied too much on LeBron and AD. But now, you can be a little more comfortable with your Frank Vogel keeping LeBron on the bench for another 2 or 3 minutes because now you have Dennis who can create offense. So I love it. I absolutely love it for them. And you didn't give up anything.
No, that's the other thing about it too. Yeah. I honestly think it was a steal. You're getting a guy like Schroeder, who's still young too, by the way. Yeah. It's a building because he's a guy that helps you now and in the future. And all you giving up is Danny Green and the 28th pick in the draft.
I do think they'll miss Danny Green's defense a little bit. I feel like people, give Danny Green a bad rap. He wasn't, that great. And of course that game 5 moment's going to live in infamy in his career. But listen, he was a serviceable player. I think he was. I think he's a little underrated defensively still. And I think he helped the Lakers more than people give him credit for.
He's a guy that does the little things. I don't think they'll miss him as much because I think what Danny Green brings you can easily replace. I mean, you can make the argument that they have already somebody on the roster in Avery Bradley, if he opts in, that instantly fills that role, plus gives you a little bit more offensive versatility than, let's say, a Danny Green. The problem with Danny Green is if he's not hitting his threes, he doesn't really give you much else, right? Besides defense. Offensively, obviously defensively. And even his defense, to me, even at points last year. It's not what it used to be. So even the defensive part is a little overrated because even that has taken a step back and he's regressed in that area too. So if he's not really giving you, if he's not hitting a 3-pointer at an extraordinary clip like he's used to, he kind of doesn't really give you much of anything. So yeah, that to me, I think you can replace Danny Green, especially if you're telling me right now, if the Lakers right now can come away in free agency with Wes Matthews, Dennis Schroeder, and Serge Ibaka.
Oh, stop! It's already better. Like that team is already way better than last year's team.
Absolutely. I'm playing around with this trade machine, by the way, too. So yeah, I think the Lakers. I'm surprised that we were able to pull that off kind of swiftly in the middle of the day, like quickly too. Yeah. And I kept checking too. I was like, is Kuzma involved? Like, is anybody like to keep Kuzma, get Schroeder? And just trade and basically just give up Danny Green's contract. It's just, anything else in particular that has your interest? What other free agent rumors? So, all right, we talked about Harden, but we talked about Westbrook. So what's the best fit for Westbrook?
Westbrook needs to go on a team where it's his team because he's not good enough. He's an interesting player in the sense where like, he can't be a number 2 because of the way he plays. Like he demands the basketball. He has to go 1,000% with the basketball. He can't just fall back and be a number 2. So he has to be a number 1 somewhere. But he's not good enough to lead a championship team or be a good enough number 1 to make any significant noise. He's like in this weird realm. So for me, like for Westbrook, if I'm Russell Westbrook, I want to go to a place like Charlotte. Like I know that sounds crazy, but a place like Charlotte or a team that's kind of on the cusp of like the playoffs and don't really have a starter or star out there, like. You can't pair him up with anybody. He doesn't work well with anybody. I don't care what anybody says. I know last year he had some moments with Harden, but it wasn't with Harden. It was just a simple fact that it was your turn, my turn, and during his turn, he was okay. There's no conceivable way I think he can match with anybody. His style play just does not dictate it. Also, what scares me about him is that as years get older, he's going to become less athletic. He can't shoot the basketball right now. I mean, he's going to go downhill, and he's going downhill quick. So if I'm a, I
would argue he's already going downhill.
Yeah, and if I'm a team looking at him, I'd be very wary of that because once he loses his athleticism, I mean, the skill is just not there. It's not. So he's not going to be hitting jump shots. He's not particularly crafty how to get to the rim. He doesn't like use ball screens and like is savvy in that nature. So like, what are you going to be getting for him? So I'd be very cautious if I was anybody. But to me, like if I'm a contending team, I'm staying the hell away from him. I want nothing to do with him.
I agree with you, man. I completely agree with you. I think Westbrook has just no trade value for me because he doesn't improve. I mean, I guess you can make the case that he would improve Charlotte. He'd make them a little bit better.
No. If the Knicks right now or the Hornets, like they would instantly be better. There's no doubt in my mind they'd be better because he'd be the best player on the team. They would run through him, and he's one of the best athletes in the league. But what I'm saying is that long term, it's going to go down.
Right.
And the ceiling for that is
2 years, 2-3 years. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
It doesn't. Right. I'm with you. Absolutely. He makes a team like the Suns better. He makes a team like the Knicks better or Charlotte better. But how much better is that long term better? No.
No one's going to want to come play with you. I don't know with anybody.
The problem with Westbrook is he's supremely talented, but he's a low IQ player. He really is. He's a low IQ player. Like Russell Westbrook. To me, Russell Westbrook is so infuriating to watch because the talent is there. The way he plays the game with the ferocity, the fire. As a fan, you love. Like he's literally the guy. I think he would be the guy that would drive Nick. Nick fans would love him and drive him insane at the same time because he just does. Because he's a low IQ player in big games. You can't trust him because he's so volatile that he might do something. Russell Westbrook can win you a game and lose you a game.
Right.
All in the same breath. Right. So I think, and then how do you win with a guy like that? Like to me, he's a guy you just can't win with. You just put him on a bad team and you just watch him do his thing, essentially. Exactly. And see if he could just go to triple double, and see if he could just score triple doubles. And I think his ability to really adapt and change with basketball, the way basketball changed over the last 5 years, has been it's starting to come. The chickens are starting to come home to roost now, right? Because he's never developed a shot. He's never really developed. He doesn't even have an offensive go-to move. Like, what is his offensive go-to move? Nothing.
Dribble as fast as I can, as hard as I can to the rim.
Again, low IQ. So he's never really improved in that area. So then now that he's older and he's had some injuries, what is that even going to look like? Right? Like he's Right. I mean, I don't want to make it sound like it's going to be a complete death sentence because could he change the way he plays? Could he adapt? Could he become a better shooter as he gets older? I mean, we saw Jason Kidd become a competent 3-point shooter as he got older.
Jason Kidd's one of the smartest basketball players ever played.
There you go. Low IQ. Jason. Exactly. Right. So there's that thread there of what I'm saying. He's a low IQ player. He's a guy that just has never been I don't see him as a smart basketball player, as a guy that's smart. I'm not talking about his intelligence off the court or anything. I'm just saying on the court, I think he's a low IQ player, man. He's a frustrating guy to watch. He's like that quarterback that just tantalizes you with all the talent, the arm talent. He's the Jay Cutler of basketball. He has the arm strength. He has the physical tools. And then you watch him and he's like, this guy really frustrates me when I watch him.
I don't understand why so many people are enamored with him.
Because he's sexy, right? Because it's not him specifically, but the numbers. He puts up the big gaudy numbers. You know, he's a guy that, you know, they're average the triple doubles 2 years in a row. And I think a lot of people like the way he plays, the fire, the ferocity, the take no prisoners attitude, that thoroughbred. Like you could literally drop Russell Westbrook in 1980s basketball and he fits right in personality wise, right? Which is rare to say from other guys in the league now. You know, so I think a lot of people have an affinity for that. That being said, if you're honestly just looking at it from a basketball perspective, James Harden. So I don't honestly. His best route to me is to go to a team like the Knicks or his best bet is to go to a team like the Knicks or Phoenix, where he can be entertaining and exciting to watch for a couple years, and they'll be a first round and out type of team. That's the best I can see for him. The Clippers making that trade, it makes no sense to me.
No.
Yeah.
I don't think any team that has serious title aspirations are thinking about Russell Westbrook right now. Not a single one.
And then that contract, by the way.
Yeah. It's only the teams that are on the cusp of making the playoffs or that want to be some sort of relevant franchise that are thinking about it. There's just no way. There's no way to even rationalize it at all from any team's. The only rational argument you can give is we bring Russell Westbrook here. He brings us to some type of respectability that brings free agents over. You know, we get draft picks with the contract because we're taking on his bad contract, and then you can make that argument, but I don't even think that argument holds true because I don't think he draws a lot of players. I don't think people would come to play with Russell Westbrook. I don't think that's the case.
I agree with you. And going back to the Harden discussion, so I played around with the trade machine. I don't do this a lot. I know people that make their life doing this on Twitter, right? So we're talking about the Bucks and the Rockets. This obviously wouldn't be enough, I don't think, to get traded. But it just fits. Just using the Rockets and the Bucks, right? Mm-hmm. It would take Bledsoe and his 4-year contract at $15.6 mil. Brook Lopez and his 1-year, $12 million deal. And George Hill, his 3-year at $9 million a year to get Harden, to make that trade a success.
See, with me, now, it's I'm not getting younger. What's that trade? If I'm the Rockets, George Hill, Brook Lopez, these guys are way
right. Obviously, this would have to involve multiple teams, right? Draft picks, etc. Right. So the Bucks would have to send over basically 2 or 3 draft picks, plus whatever third team is involved, so the Rockets can get some younger aspects. I mean, you could basically say that the Rockets could flip Brook Lopez and get that $12 million deal off their books because he's an asset, because he's an expiring contract. So that helps him in that regard. Yeah, that helps him in that regard. Honestly, to me, again, I'll reiterate it. James Harden to the Bucks just makes sense to me from a basketball perspective. That's the only team that I can see that makes somewhat sense. Anybody else, I just don't see it. James Harden on Denver, does that make Denver better? No.
No, hell no.
Yeah, but aren't you surprised that Denver's kind of being active now? There's rumors that they want to get in on Drew Holiday. To me, I don't think
Denver's missing something. Denver's this interesting team where it's they're not really missing anything, but they need to be more talented. So it's how do you get more talented when you don't really need anything? You just kind of upgrade positions, but it's where do you upgrade, right? You have Jamal Murray, who's turned into an all-star point guard over the playoffs. So you have Jokic, who's your best player. Maybe you get better on the wing, shooting guard position, small forward type position, but they're really deep, man. That's one of the deepest teams in the league. So it's for Denver. I don't even know what direction I go, because I wouldn't want to bring a star who commands the ball too much, because I feel that would change the dynamics of the team.
I agree.
say this, like Robert Covington. It was like someone who would be perfect for him. They need players like that. Like Denver's this interesting team where it's like I think they're really close to their ceiling, and that ceiling is not winning a championship. So it's like I kind of feel bad. I
disagree. I don't know. I'm higher on Denver than a lot of people seem to be. Like I think Denver's on the cusp, man. I just think Denver's just young. I think they just got to wait it out. I think so many times I think we're so quick in as NBA fans, right? Because that's just the world we live in now, that we just want to make things happen for teams. Like we just forget that like it took the Bulls like 4 or 5 years for them to reach their apex. It takes teams a while. Even Golden State, like it took Golden State a few years to kind of figure it all out. I think that's where Denver is right now. I think that Denver's still trying to figure it out. Where are they in the NBA hierarchy? I think they're waiting out LeBron a little bit till LeBron maybe ages or gets injured or whatever. Right. But I mean, outside of the Lakers, Denver, Dallas, those are the two teams that I'm looking at as kind of like that, those next in line to kind of take that next mantle.
Dallas is a team for me. I think Dallas. I think
Denver's right there with Dallas. I really do. I like Jokic. Jokic is just he's next world, and Jokic is still getting better. So Jokic gets older, more experienced. I think he's only get better. And Jamal Murray, even though I can't stand him, he showed me a lot. So I think Denver's there, man. I just don't want Denver to get cute and try to let's just throw things at the wall again. Upgrade for the sake of upgrading.
Right.
Because the NBA Twitter says we have to upgrade, so let's just go out and get Drew Holiday, which doesn't really fit or really improve.
But then they also have Michael Porter Jr. and Bol Bol coming up.
Exactly. That's the other thing about it too.
Yeah.
Michael Porter Jr. Say what you want to say about him, MAGA Porter Jr. His Black Lives Matter views aside. He's a talented guy, man. He doesn't play much defense, but he's a guy that fills a need. He just puts the ball in the basket. He just is an instant offense getter, right?
And Bol too, man. He looks
Bol Bol. I really like Bol Bol. To me, he's an interesting prospect. I think the NBA doesn't even know what Bol Bol is right now. I think he doesn't even know what Bol Bol is right now. I think he's still trying to figure that out. But I think once he does, the sky's the limit for that kid. So Denver's a really interesting team. I think the problem with Denver is they have so many pieces and they don't know what to really do with all the pieces.
Too many. Yeah.
But, maybe I don't want them to start upgrading for the sake of upgrading. I don't want them to just start making trades for the sake of making trades. Cause that also gets you in trouble too, right? Where you're just trying to hit home runs. Sometimes you just got to wait it out, man. Sometimes you just got to keep building that going through that. And they're young enough where, they tie up. From what I believe, I don't have any reason to believe that Jokic is going to want to leave. I don't have any reason to think that Murray will leave. So tie those two up long term.
Hopefully stays.
Porter hopefully stays, and even Gary Harris. I think Gary Harris is an underrated player. Gary Harris, I think he's a really good player. He just COVID killed him, and then coming in, he was already behind the 8 ball. So but Gary Harris, I think they got a really good nucleus there. I'm higher on Denver than it seems a lot of people in our circle is. I really like Denver.
I was really high on them 2 years ago, the year they lost to Portland in 7, and just watching them every playoff series. I know they had the 3-1 comebacks this year, but they just seem to always underwhelm me with how they played against teams that they should beat or handle.
But that's youth, though. That's youth, man. That's just youth. They're still young. They're still
to a Jazz team that they had no business being down 3-1 to. And I know it's impressive coming back and winning that series, but they should never been in that position in the first place. So I get what you're saying. On one hand, it's really impressive they came back down 3-1, especially against the Clippers. It's really impressive. But on the other hand, they played 4 straight 7-game series. The year before that, they played a San Antonio Spurs team that had no business being in the playoffs. That took them 7. So
that's true.
So for me, I watched them play, and then when it comes to the playoff games, it's just kind of without Jamal Murray going ape shit, we're not even having a discussion about Denver. We're talking about how disappointed they are.
True. Very true. Very true. So it's interesting. At Denver, to me, 2 teams that I'm really watching over through the course of the next couple of years is Denver and Dallas. How those 2 teams kind of take. Yeah, Dallas definitely, but Dallas obviously has Luka, which is just a whole nother level, right?
But KP's healthy, man. KP, man.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right, man. Let's transition over to week 10 of the NFL season before we get out of here. Kind of run through these games and see anything that stood out to us. Let's start with the Sunday night football game: Patriots and Ravens.
Ravens are just not that good of a football team right now. I think we touched on this last week, right? Didn't we say this a little bit last week? I'm just
the week before, probably.
Want to see more out of Lamar Jackson. Obviously, not dissing him. I think he's a solid starting quarterback. I think he's going to be a solid quarterback, a franchise quarterback for the Baltimore Ravens, but got to see more from him. I mean, the offensive line's not playing well. The defense is not what it used to be. They just don't really seem like to be a dominant team. And, the Patriots, they seem like they found themselves, just control the clock, control the ball, run the football, rush the football. You have Cam Newton, who's a very mobile quarterback. Use him. Don't take too many chances down the field and just control the clock, control the ball, and play solid defense. And so it didn't surprise me the Patriots won, but I am starting to be very disappointed in Baltimore because I did expect more from them this year.
Yeah, I agree. 100%. I can't add anything else. I mean, I think the Patriots I think people are throwing dirt on the Patriots way too soon. I still think the Patriots are a solid football team. They've got the mad fucking scientist on the sidelines who's going to figure it out. And you already see he's figured it out. He's like, hey, we cannot be the Tom Brady Patriots anymore. We've got to change the way we play. So we've got to be a ball control, run the football down your throats, make short, quick, intermediary passes, and beat you that way and have a good, solid defense.
Right.
And that's what the Patriots are going to do. And that still wins in the NFL. That still wins in the NFL. It's not pretty, but it still wins. And, yeah, I like I said, I think I said this in the first show we did. I think COVID had a lot to do with Cam's regression there in the last few weeks. Yeah. And I think people didn't, and I think a lot of people didn't talk about that enough. And that's obviously
I heard some players talk about it. I mean, just background information. I do for those you don't know, I produce a podcast for Uninterrupted 17 Weeks. And in my interview with Emmanuel Sanders, he went on about it. He was like, I think a lot of people aren't talking about the fact that Cam Newton had COVID and aren't discussing that his performance is linked to that. He's like, I think he's not doing well because he had COVID, because Emmanuel had COVID 2 weeks ago. So he knows the symptoms. He's like, it's hard to recover from. These people don't really understand what it is. I mean, just because you come back from COVID doesn't mean it doesn't have effects on you.
Right. So I do. And you're a quarterback. You're having to, remember plays and do all these other things that, right. It's an impact. Right. Absolutely. So I agree with that for sure. And plus he was playing like a comeback player of the year candidate before he got COVID. I mean, that game against Seattle, he matched Russell Wilson in that game.
And if he scores that touchdown, we're having a whole different conversation.
Whole different conversation. So, yeah, I'm with you 100%. Steelers, Bengals, not much of a surprise there, 36-10. Anything that stands out in that game?
No, Steelers defense is just really effing good, man. The Steelers are good. They're a really good football team. Yeah, I think people are starting to come to terms with it. I'm not really sure why they didn't get respect in the beginning. They have a bunch of weapons.
Because the uncertainty around Big Ben. That was the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And to me, he's an MVP candidate. Big Ben to me,
I think his name's going to start being mentioned in there.
He's so underrated. I said that last week. I'm gonna keep saying it again. Like, I'm a huge Big Ben fan. I know it's like heresy to say this on social media that like you like Big Ben. Big Ben is a hell of a quarterback, man. I don't, his past transgressions aside, Big Ben is a hell of a quarterback, man. Anybody who doesn't see that is just, the guy's just, some of the throws he makes, the staying in the pocket, getting beat up as he gets, like, the guy is just, I mean, he's a fucking offensive tackle playing quarterback. It's fucking crazy. And he makes all the throws. He's clutch. He's tough. Like, I just love the guy, man. And to me, he's an MVP candidate. I think Russell Wilson's kind of starting to, we can kind of put that to rest as far.
We were talking about how he had like
2 bad games in a row.
Really bad games.
Yeah. So
the defense didn't play. The defense came in to this game like being torched. Ken Norton's job is on the line apparently, and they weren't great, but they did their job. You figure you hold the Rams at 23, Russ could get you that.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And we've moved over to that game, but yeah. And I think the other thing for me is I think the Rams are really good. They're a solid football team. They know who they are. Goff's going to make his plays. I think a lot of people are down on the Rams because they don't have that star power that they had a couple of years ago. But Goff, to me, is a better quarterback. I don't think they have the uncertainty around Gurley. Does he play? Does he not play? What's his knee like? I think they have a good running back rotation. They've got good receivers. They're not a sexy team. They don't have a great player on offense, but they have good players. They're just a good team. They're just a good, solid football team. And their defense is legit. So I think people are not taking the Rams seriously enough.
Yeah, because I think when they made the Super Bowl that year, like you said, like it was a very sexy offense. Like Sean McVay was like a very sexy name out there. They were scoring at will, and the offense. It's not that anymore. It's not. Goff is serviceable. He has a nice receiving core. They have a nice running game going, but it's not as sexy as it was the year they made the Super Bowl. So people just kind of look at them and just take them for granted, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Saints and 49ers. I watched a lot of this game. This game to me was really close for a long period of time. Actually more close than it should be, but the Saints held on at the end. Drew biggest thing about this game, biggest thing about this is Drew Brees' health going forward. But anything else to stick out about this game?
Yeah, I think we might have, or just people in general might have overrated the Saints. And this is what happens after you win a huge game in prime time. I mean, even before Drew got hurt, the Saints just did not look good. And I think the NFC, it just shows the NFC is up for grabs. It really is. I don't think there's one team in the NFC where you can look at and be like, that's the team to beat, because I think it's a week-to-week basis. Like 1 week you think it's the Packers, and then they lay an egg against Minnesota. And then you think it's New Orleans Saints. And even though they won this week, they didn't look particularly good against the San Francisco 49ers. And then the 1 week you think it's Brady, and then the next week they get their asses kicked by whoever. So to me, the NFC is just wide open. I do think the Saints can win the NFC. I just think it's going to come down to who gets hot at the end. And I don't think there's a surefire best team in the NFC right now. And this game just kind of proved it, even though they won.
Yeah, I'm with you. Absolutely. 100%. I think I'm a little higher on the Saints than you are. I think the Saints right now are probably the best team in the NFC right now. They're the most complete team. They have the best defense to me out of the big. You can argue them and Tampa, although I think Tampa's defense
past defense has not been.
Tampa's defense has been a little bit overrated to me. I think their defense is great against bad teams. I think when they got to play against big time teams or big time quarterbacks, their defense leaves a lot to be desired. I
like Green Bay.
And
I like Green Bay.
Yeah, I like Green Bay too. I mean, I like Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is my guy, A-Rod, but I don't know. There's still something about that team that I just don't trust in a big spot. I don't know. To me, they're good. Their defense is better. It's much more of a competitive defense. I would care to say they're a good defense. I still think New Orleans, man. The biggest key to New Orleans is having home field advantage, and if Drew Brees plays well in the postseason. I mean, honestly, that's what's kept the Saints out of the Super Bowl basically 2 years in a row. Is if Drew Brees plays well in big spots. I made a joke last year.
Shit happening, man. I'm not going to lie.
Well, that too. The
Minnesota Miracle was crazy.
The Minnesota Miracle, and then of course the non-pass interference. So there's been other mitigating circumstances. But let's be fair. Drew Brees has not been great in the playoffs the last couple of years. I mean, I made a joke last year that Taysom Hill was the best quarterback on the Saints last year against the Vikings. He was. They made plays with Taysom Hill on the field than they did with Drew Brees. So if they can keep Drew Brees upright and healthy, and if he plays well, I don't think he needs to be the Drew Brees of old. I don't think he needs to go out there and throw for 30 of 36 for 345 yards and 2 touchdowns. But I think he needs to be good enough. And if they can get that and I think their defense is legit. I think the Saints defense is legit. I really do. That defense is legit, and it's good on all levels too. So that's the thing that sticks out for me. Cardinals, Bills.
Whew. DeAndre Hopkins.
That's it.
Oh, my God.
DeAndre Hopkins.
Because the Bills and Cardinals are to me, they're mirror images of each other in different conferences where it's like they have a good record, but I think they're a little fugazi. Like they think both teams are fugazi. I don't put too much stock in either team right now, but I mean, just to talk about that last play, I mean, one of the best catches I've ever seen. If you see a still frame of where he caught the ball, to see the 3 Bills around him, I'm not sure if you've seen it, Manny, but do yourself a favor and look at that picture. I have no idea how.
I watched it. I watched it in real time. It's and I think what it's not getting enough credit is the throw. Kyler Murray. Look, I'll take a mea culpa on Kyler Murray. I didn't believe it. I didn't believe the hype.
Right.
I thought he's going to be another Big Ten quarterback. He's small. I don't know.
He's an athlete. He's
an athlete.
He's unreal.
He's unreal. He makes some great throws, and that throw was just incredible. I mean, I know people online are trying to, the degree of difficulty. I mean, look, Hopkins' catch is just, I'm not trying to take away from
the throw too. No, you're right.
The throw was just fantastic because those throws have to be right up there, right on the money. Right. And it was. He put it in the perfect spot for this fucking dude to catch it. And it was just, it's incredible. And look, I'll take a mea culpa on Kyler Murray. I just didn't believe it. And he's starting to make me a believer. I still got to see more.
No, I still
got to see more. I still got to see Kyler.
He's a future MVP. He's there.
I got to see Kyler Murray in a big-time playoff game against a big defense, 35. Let me see it. I'm not going to knock him on it because we haven't seen it. I'm just saying I got to see it. I got to see it in a big game.
See how he goes on the road in New Orleans. Let's see how he does.
Right. When he can't move around, when he's got to make a big throw from the pocket, we'll see. He's shown flashes that he can do it. Let's see. Nothing to say about the Cardinals. And I'll take a mea culpa on Cliff Kingsbury. I hated the hire. I was like, Cliff Kingsbury, a marginal coach in college, and you're bringing him. He's done a good job. I hate to say it, but he's done a good job. Raiders and Broncos.
Just nothing really to talk about. Las Vegas just keeps winning games, man, under the radar. People forget about them. They just play solid football. I mean, they run the basketball. Who runs the basketball?
It's late, man. It's Sunday night. It's late.
They control the clock. I think Carr is having a better season than people really think he is. I don't think he's fantastic, but he's definitely serviceable. So the Raiders, man, I don't think they're a threat to win anything special, but I definitely think they're a playoff team, especially with this extra team added in the playoffs. And shout out to them. I mean, they did go to Kansas City and beat the Chiefs. That says something. They just keep winning football games. And it's not impressive. It's not flashy. They just keep doing it.
Yeah. Well, I got to get on you because you just said Derek Carr. He's not the greatest, but he gets the job done. Look, I think Derek Carr is severely underrated. Like, I don't know what it is about, like, and I say this a lot, like NFL fans today, if your quarterback's not Tom Brady or Peyton Manning or Aaron Rodgers
putting up crazy numbers,
right? Then somehow you just suck. Like Derek Carr is a very good quarterback. No one's saying Derek Carr is going to be a Hall of Famer or a guy that's going to, you can win with Derek Carr if you surround him with a good running game, which they have, good receivers, a good defense. Derek Carr can win you. I mean, this is like people forget this. Like I've been defending Derek Carr a lot over the last couple of years, but this guy almost won an MVP. Like I think people forget that. Like he almost won an MVP, and like he got hurt. He had a really serious injury. People forget that as well. Right. And of course his team fell apart. His offensive line fell apart. His coaching staff. I mean, everything fell apart around this guy, and they're finally building it up. And it just always feels like, yeah, Derek Carr is good, but Derek Carr is no, he's a good quarterback, man.
He doesn't do anything the thing is, it's kind of like a victim of like how great of an era we're in. I mean, to me, honestly, we're in this era of quarterbacks where just everyone feels like you have Rodgers, Brady, Kyler Murray now just coming in the league making noise, even Josh Allen to an extent where I don't think he's all that great, but you see the things that he does on a week-to-week basis, and he does at least one or two things a game where you're just like, gee, my God, regardless of how good he played. Patrick Mahomes speaks for himself, Russell Wilson. I mean, and then you just throw in Derek Carr, who never does anything spectacular. He just makes the right play every single time, which is what you want your quarterback to do. It just doesn't get enough notoriety. And he's also, I don't know if he's a quarterback that's going to bring you from behind. I think a big reason why the Raiders keep winning games is because they play ahead, they run the football, they control the clock. Now, if you're down 10 points in the fourth quarter, is he going to bring you back? I don't know. Can he? Possibly. Like you said, he was a former MVP candidate, but I think that's what it comes down to. You're not going to see anything spectacular from him, so people don't mention him in that like era.
Right. To me, Derek Carr he's not elite, but he's in that next tier. He's in that Matthew Stafford. He's in that Matthew Stafford tier. He's in that Eli Manning's tier. He's in that Phillip Rivers, where he's just a good guy, will put up numbers, on a good team, on a really good team, good defense, good running game, good receivers. He can win you games. Team gets hot in the postseason, could probably get you into a Super Bowl. Like, that's what I think Derek Carr is. He's a Joe Flacco type. He's a good, solid quarterback. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, I think we just have to.
Eli has two.
Yeah, we can. That's a whole discussion for another day. I'll leave that one alone.
What I meant is that, like, what I'm saying, I meant that as like a fact that Derek Carr can win you a Super Bowl. That's what I meant.
Yeah. True. No, I'm just saying, like, even I'm just saying it from the fact that I think Giant fans tend to overrate Eli's greatness historically speaking.
I agree with you. I'm a Giant fan.
Eli's not a great quarterback.
Without those two runs, we can get into that later.
But no, I think Derek Carr is a really good quarterback, man, and I'm glad that he's having a kind of a rebounding season because it's good to see, because I've always been high on Derek Carr. Dolphins and Chargers.
Dolphins, man, the Dolphins are good. The Dolphins defense is for real, man. Tua looks good too, but that Dolphins defense is for real. They are a playoff team. I mean, I think you said this last week. Don't count them out for the division. I mean, now it's in grasp with the Bills losing and them winning. They're good. Both sides of the ball, they're good.
Both sides of the ball. I'm not sold on Tua yet. I'm not yet, but he looks good so far. It's only been 2 games, so I'll be fair, but I'm not sold on Tua yet. Or 3 games, but I will say this. I think Brian Flores might be the best of the Belichick disciples. He's a hell of a coach. hell of a coach. I've been impressed with him last year. I was impressed with him last year because that team could have fell apart last year. Remember, they started the year as a team that was going to tank.
Maybe 0-16, one of the worst teams of all time.
Right, and he coached that team up to be respectable, to be competitive. That's to me what impresses me about a coach. I don't care what you do with talent. Anybody can win when you have great players, but when you have a lesser or subpar team, if you get those guys to play hard for you every night,
you trade away Tunzel and freaking Minka Fitzpatrick.
Absolutely,
like you're waving the
Brian Flores is a hell of a coach. He's a hell of a coach, and I'm each week I'm more and more impressed by that guy. And you're right, their defense is legit. I can't stand it because I'm a Jets fan, obviously, and I hate the Dolphins. But I gotta recognize it where I see it, and that's a good team. That's a good, solid football team, and they have a shot. I mean, that division is completely wide open right now. I mean, even the Patriots. The Patriots still have a shot in that division. It's not out of the realm. They're still in it. So I think the division is wide open. So I think it's going to come down who plays well within the division to win that division. So yeah, I really, really believe that the Dolphins are a good team. They are a legit 6-3. It's not a mirage. I think they're a legit 6-3. Bucks Panthers.
I kind of expected this. After getting embarrassed on primetime, you figure the Bucks would come back and play the smackdown, so to say, on the Panthers. The Panthers are just not a good football team. It's a weird.
It's a transitional type of year for the Panthers.
It's just something off with them. They have talent on offense, but they don't really put it together all the time. Their defense is not good at all. The defense is awful. And the Bucks, man, the Bucks are for real. They're a really good team. They have two solid running backs. I think Ronald Jones is really underrated. Tom Brady has all these weapons. I don't know why they don't use Mike Evans the way they use Mike Evans today all the time, but they should.
Yeah, they should.
And one thing too, I think Gronk is going a little under the radar here. He's having a nice kind of return season. I'm not saying he's the Gronk of old, but he's very serviceable. Cameron Brate's another tight end. Like, he can run a 2 tight end set with him. They're very versatile on offense. And I think you're right when you say the Bucs defense is a little overrated, but their run defense is good. It's just playing down to their competition, they dominate good, bad teams, and against good teams, they don't really show up. I think that's going to be a trend, but I think it's good enough for them to, get hot and win the NFC. I think they're definitely a contender.
Yeah, nothing else to really add there. I mean, the Panthers are what they are. They're kind of a rebuilding team, if you want to call it that way. The talent, I've been impressed with the Panthers. They play hard. They play solid football.
They're in every game they play. They're
in every game.
I mean, they got blown out. They kind of got blown out today, but for the
no, this game was actually closer. I know the score 46-23 seems bigger, but this was a competitive game. I think the Bucs kind of turned it on in the second half, but this was a competitive game. I mean, really, for 2.5 quarters, this was a game. So, I think the Panthers are just one of those teams that are going to finish like 5-11, 6-10. They're just not ready to win just yet right now.
Right. They'll be in every game.
They'll be in every game. They'll be competitive. Rule looks like he's got a grasp of what he's doing, so we'll see.
Yeah.
And the Buccaneers are the Buccaneers. I'm not as high on them as you are. I think the Buccaneers are one of those teams. They're a bully team. They'll beat up on the bad teams, the teams they're supposed to beat, and against big-time teams, we'll see. Other than the Packers, I mean, they really haven't been impressive against, big-time competition. The Saints have got them twice, and even that Bears game, they kind of played down to the Bears, and it cost them.
And the Giants, too. The Giants going to be
Absolutely. So, yeah, I'm not as high on the Buccaneers as other people are.
It's not so much that I'm high on them. It's just so much that I think the NFC is wide open, and I could see them getting hot. They're a team I could see them winning is.
Yeah. Texans Browns, the ugliest game of the year.
There's not much to say about it. The weather was awful. There wasn't a touchdown scored until 5 minutes ago in the game. It was just, although I'm an old school football fan, man, so I don't mind a 10-7. But it wasn't old school in the sense where it was defensive struggle. It was just bad football.
Yeah, it was bad. It was. Yeah. It was. Man, it's not much to say about this game. The Browns to me are an unimpressive 6-3. If I'm saying that the Dolphins are legit 6-3, the Browns are the opposite. To me, the Browns they're okay. They're solid. They seem like Stefanski looks like he knows what he's doing. It's a good coach. They have things settled there. I still don't love Baker Mayfield long term. They got a great running game. I mean, they got 2 stud running backs. Their defense is legit. But yeah, they're just there. I'm meh on the Browns. And then the Texans to me are still
an abomination.
To me, I think that roster is still better than people than there's this belief that 2-7. Everybody puts a lot of blame on Bill O'Brien, and look, he deserves see the Bills Cardinals game and know why Bill O'Brien's fired and he deserves all the hate that he gets. That being said, that team should be a lot better than what it is. They should not be a 2-7 football team. They have talent. Deshaun Watson, Will Fuller, David Johnson. Like, that team is more talented.
They should win. They should have won today.
They should have won today. They should not be. They should at best be a 500 team. That team should not be 2-7. And I know Romeo Crennel's not the answer. They'll have a new coach in there next year, but that's still one of the most disappointing teams to me in the NFL. Yeah, that's my take.
I agree.
Washington football team. See, I got it right this week. For Washington football team and the Lions. Lions 30, Washington 27. Anything about that game?
It was a nice comeback by Washington. They were down 3 touchdowns. They came back, tied the game, and Matthew Stafford led again when he drive. To me, I just feel bad for Matthew Stafford. To me, I think he's one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the past 10, 15 years. I'm a huge Matt Stafford fan. Just plays for an organization that knows how to lose football games, and it's what it is. Mediocre teams playing each other. I don't think it counts for anything. I mean, maybe for Washington it does, because even with their record, they have a shot at the NFC East. But it was just a typical game that. You see 2 mediocre teams make mistakes back and forth, and whichever makes less mistakes at the end wins. That's what it felt like.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm not a huge Matt Stafford fan. I've never been.
Yeah, I love that.
I'm not. To me, he's another stat sheet stuffer. He's another stat sheet stuffer guy.
Oh man,
He never wins, bro. Like, I'm so tired. It's not all on him, obviously. I get that, but to me, if you're the quarterback, if you're a Hall of Fame, and if you look at Matt Stafford's numbers, he's a Hall of Fame quarterback, numbers wise. But he never wins. Like, this guy's only been to the playoffs twice in his entire career, and he's never gotten out of
a win in Dallas. That one,
he did get cheated. He did get cheated. He did get cheated out of a win. Absolutely, I second that. I agree. That being said, bro, if you're a good quarterback, I mean, can I get a little bit more consistency from the wins column?
That's fair.
And he's had talent. You can't say he hasn't had any talent. He's had talent. Now, I get it. The Lions are a perennial fuck up. I get that. They fired Jim Caldwell and hired this goof Patricia who can't coach. I understand that. I get that. Coach. It's not all. But sometimes when you have a great quarterback, he's supposed to mask a lot of those issues. And Stafford just doesn't, But specifically for this game, Alex Smith, man. Alex Smith. I'm just such a huge Alex Smith fan. Full disclosure, I wasn't before. I watched the E60 on him with the leg. How can you not root for Alex Smith? And he put up numbers today.
Yeah.
And I'll say this too. There's some some Redskins fans who are mad because Dwayne Haskins isn't playing. You know how bad you have to be that Alex Smith at 36 with basically one leg, coming back off basically 18 months of being away in rehab, is playing and putting up numbers, and you can't sniff the field? You know how bad you have to be?
Haskins looked really bad when he played. I mean, I watched.
And I want to like Dwayne Haskins. I want to I love that pick when they made it, but he's not been good. Like, everything can't be a controversy. Like, he just hasn't been good.
At all.
Yeah. So I just had to throw that out there because I was just like, I was seeing these tweets from Redskins fans. Did it again. Washington football fans. And I'm just like, are they watching? Did they watch the same Dwayne Haskins that I did? No. Yeah, probably not. Anyway, Jaguars and Packers 24. That's the game that was a lot closer today that should not have been.
Yeah, and the Packers seem to do this sometimes too, where they play down to their competition. The Jaguars actually have a legit defense, so it doesn't surprise me that Rodgers struggled a little bit with them. But there's no reason why that game should have been that close. But at the end of the day, they got the W, and that's all that really matters.
Jaguars are a perfect example of a team that plays better than their record. Like, that team, to me, you look at their record, you think Jaguars are a terrible team. But if you
need a quarterback, like that's. I'm
a Gardner Minshew guy. I like Gardner Minshew.
Awful this year. I like him too. He's been awful this year, man. And their new guy, I don't even know his name. Whatever his name is, who he came.
Luton's not bad.
He's okay.
Luton's not bad. He's got look. I think there's something.
Players. You have a running back now. I think their line's decent. Like, come on.
Yeah, Minshew hasn't been as good this year. He also has been a little banged up. He's been hurt, so that's part of it. But I still give credit to that team, man. That team plays hard. They're in a lot of games. Outside of like maybe 2 or 3 games, they've been close in every game. Games that they easily could have won. 1-8, they could easily be 3-6.
Yeah. Easy
4-5, something like that. So, yeah, and this is more of a shot at Adam Gase. That for the folks that say, "Oh, he doesn't have any talent," does Marone have any talent in Jacksonville? And he's still playing a competitive brand of football. So
I don't know anyone who's defending Adam Gase, man. I don't think anyone's saying that about Adam Gase anymore.
Yeah. No, don't. It's a bye week, so it's a good week in Jets land. They didn't lose a game today. Although the Jets probably will be the only team that can manage to lose on a bye week. I'll say that. Eagles, Giants. Resident Giant fan, I'll hand it over to you.
OG, man. Listen, the opposite of the Jets. The Giants play hard every week, and that defense is better than a lot of people think they are. Daniel Jones looked serviceable today. There's times he shows spurts of being a competent quarterback, and I like the fact they ran like a run-pass option with him today. I think that's when he's at his best. You get him moving, get him running. Run the ball with Daniel Jones. He's mobile. Be that. He can make throws from the pocket sometimes, yes, but, use his strengths. So I'm really happy what I saw from the Giants. I did expect them to win this game, being at home and being that it's pretty much for their divisional hopes at least. And I'm glad they did. I think they showed up. I think Joe Judge has them playing hard, and I think their defense it's pretty solid. I think a lot of people aren't giving them a lot of credit. And, shout out to the G-Men. We're actually in this. I don't know how, but they are.
This terrible division, man. Jesus
They're not a
Christ.
good football team, but look, what you just said about the Jaguars, you can say the same thing about the Giants.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with you. I think the Giants, Judge, I'm not sure if he's a big time coach just yet, but I will say this: they play hard for him.
Yeah, they love him.
They play hard for him, and that's half the battle. That's half the battle to get guys to play hard for you, especially when you're, undermanned. Daniel Jones is what he is. He'll have weeks. He's essentially Eli Manning. He's a poor version of Eli
with legs. Eli with legs.
He's Eli with legs. Like he's a guy that you'll watch him play, and some days he'll wow you with throws that he makes, and he'll look competent. And then there's other days where you're just like, what the fuck? I mean, that's Daniel Jones in a nutshell. So he is what he is. Look, I think the Giants, crazy at 3-7, they're right in it. They're right in the thick of things. I mean, Washington's not any good. Dallas, we already discussed Dallas, and the Eagles, what can you say about the Eagles? To me, the Eagles should be a lot better than 3-5-1. They're another team that's just infinitely disappointing. Carson Wentz. Yeah. Carson Wentz. Nothing else to say about Carson Wentz. Just perpetually inconsistent. And then against the Monday Night Football game tomorrow, we can talk about it real quick. Bears, Vikings, 3-5 Vikings versus the 5-4 Bears. What do you got on that one?
I got the Vikings in this one. I think the Vikings have been playing better football. The Bears have a good defense, and I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. But that Bears offense is so out of sync. They're not on the same page. Matt Nagy and Nick Foles, just an ugly, ugly offense. And I think the Vikings, they're better than the record shows. I think they, solid defensively. They have Dalvin Cook, who, is the best running back in the league to me right now. I think they're going to try to lead on him and control the clock. And I expect them to win this game, maybe like a low-scoring, like 20-14 game or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's the Vikings. I think the Vikings are starting to figure it out. They were one of the most disappointing teams this season so far, being at 1-5. I think their record was at one point before they won these last two games. The Vikings are more talented. I think they're still trying to figure out. Obviously, they traded Diggs, so they're still trying to. I think they were kind of remaking their offense on the fly. But now this is Dalvin Cook's team. This is Dalvin Cook's offense. They're run first, ball control. Play action, make big plays with Thielen in the passing game.
And Jefferson too.
Jefferson coming in there and making big plays too. Look, I like the Vikings. The problem with the Vikings is, can their defense step up, and Kirk Cousins. The key to the Vikings is Kirk Cousins. If he plays like a competent NFL level quarterback, the Vikings are in any game. And when he doesn't, they are a sub 500 team. That's essentially what you have in the Vikings. And the Bears, I don't know what to make of the Bears. 5-4.
They're a mess, man.
Yeah.
The only reason why they're not talked about being more of a mess is because they're 5-4, but they are an absolute mess.
You can't blame everything on Trubisky.
No, you can't. A lot of it is Nagy too. I think we're finding that out with Foles stepping into the quarterback.
Mm-hmm. Nagy. It's easy to blame Trubisky. They don't have that safety net anymore now.
Yeah.
Now it's not Trubisky.
It's the offense too. It's like I'm not even like on the defense.
He's an offensive guy.
It's all the offense, and your offense. Yeah, it's just.
And they have players. It's not like they don't have players. I mean, they have Allen Robinson. This kid Mooney's good. Jimmy Graham's not what he used to be, obviously. But, I mean, they still have players on that team. And it's just like, they're just horrible to watch. Yeah. So I agree with you. I think the Vikings will win that game, though. I think the Vikings will win that game. I'm not surprised if the Vikings win that game, go to 4-5, Bears go to 5-5. So,
yeah.
Yeah, that's it. That's it on Week 10 recap, man. Before we get out of here, World's Worst Human. Who you got for this week?
Oh, hold on. I got to look her name up. Here we go. There it is.
All right, look it up.
I got it. Taylor Greene.
Taylor Greene, huh?
The representatives, representative candidate from Georgia. This woman doing burpees in her D.C. hotel room, claiming that the gym in D.C. was closed because Democrats closed everything, that she couldn't go to the gym. Found out that she was lying because not only were gyms open in D.C., but they were actually open in her hotel room that she was staying at. She got elected this 2020 election, and she's just been doing nothing but trashing Democrat cities and saying how, they want nothing but lockdowns and it's tyranny and, not to wear masks and XYZ. She's just one of those far right Republicans who are just in their own other world. And she made a video of herself doing burpees in her hotel room because the gyms were apparently closed when they weren't. And to me, it takes a lot of intellectual dishonesty to do that. I think that is evil. I think that is just you're lying. I can understand if you actually had these beliefs and they came from an intellectually honest point of view, but it's not you are in that hotel. You didn't even bother asking if the gym was open. Who told you that all the gyms in DC were closed? Did you?
It's right-wing logic, man. It's right-wing logic.
But it's people like her who just, your 60-year-old aunt or uncle see that, they post it on Facebook, and then that's how misinformation spreads. And it's people like her that are the reason why I feel like there are so many people on the right wing who are just out of their effing minds because they see things like this. And now she's looked at as a strong figurehead and a hero for the right wing. So she's the fucking worst.
Oh my God. I get it, man. I get it. Yeah. I get it. I agree with you 100%. I have actually two selections for my World's Worst Human. First in a more of a tongue-in-cheek fashion, my wife. If you guys shout out to my wife, the light of my universe, who I love so much. If you can see the video of our recordings, and you'll see it on YouTube when some of the clips go up, but we have Christmas decorations already up. It's November 15th. This woman has already decorated her Christmas tree, with a Grinch focus and everything, right? Large candy canes inside the Christmas tree. She's got a whole Grinch theme going on. Yes, this woman is the World's Worst Human for this week. One of them anyway. She's Christmas decorations, November 15th. Yeah, I'm not anti-Christmas. I'm just the
Grinch is anti-Christmas. Probably.
Well, she's got the style of the Christmas tree, like the Grinch movies, and I didn't pay half attention to this
Got it.
nonsense of hers. But she went to Hobby Lobby last night and today, or not today, but she went to last night, and then she went to other places today, and she's got the house full of decorations and ready to go, and it's not even Thanksgiving yet. And yeah, that's where we're at with this. That's where we're at with this. But a more serious note, and of course, my wife, she's going to listen to this. I love you, sweetheart. I'm just joking. More seriously, though, the Sony Corporation. Those who have been following me on Twitter, they know my struggle of myself and millions of other people, millions of other consumers, bro. Look, I'm not one of these people that makes these things bigger deals. But it is crummy when you release something so big as this, as a PlayStation 5, and you just make it nearly impossible for people to fucking get. Right. It's not right. It's not right. From a customer service perspective, it's not right. I can't tell you I've shared with you offline, but like everybody else, I went through the whole gamut. Amazon, Target, literally had PlayStations and the accessories in my cart. And as soon as I go to checkout, entering my credit card information, it fucking crashes, or it kicks me out, or then it says it's sold out. It's just, terrible all the way around. No, it's not a big deal in the grand scheme of things. I'm not dead. I'm not dying. Nobody got COVID. We have way more important things to do in life. I'm just saying, right. From a fan of PlayStation perspective, I expect better from Sony, and it's been disappointing. And of course, you got bots selling it on the resale market for triple the price, which makes it even worse. So yeah, I just think the whole rollout was just handled so poorly. And then on top of that, you don't make any available in store, just put a few, and then you just make it. They did sell something like 12 million units in a day, which is, I guess, good for Sony. But jeez. Yeah, it's crazy. It's a popular item, but you would think that Sony knew this was going to be a popular item. So Why not stop playing games, stop only releasing a certain amount, and, making people basically, dude, I sat there all Thursday, bro, all day, because Walmart did like 3-4 different release times, 9 a.m., 12 noon, 3 o'clock, and 6 o'clock. And I think it was 4 different times, 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. And each and every time failed, like within 3 minutes too. Like it wasn't even like,
sold out like
just
that.
just like that.
Wow.
So yeah, man. So that's my selection for World's Worst Human. Sony. The whole entire corporation, the whole entire multinational corporation, they all take a L. They all take a L, man. So I just gave up, man. I'm not even checking anymore. I'm like, I used to be checking every night, like, maybe a restock will come. I don't care. Yeah, I'll get it. It's not a big.
You missed out on a customer.
Yeah. So the 5 people that are listening right now are going to listen to the show. Pass it on to the Sony Corporation. Tell them that they're the worst human beings on earth and fix their shit. That's what I'm going to tell them. All right, man. I think that's it. We're gonna get up out of here. Anything you want to say before we get out of here?
Nah, just nothing really to say. Just stay safe, wear a mask, social distance. COVID is real. We may agree or disagree on how to move forward as a country as far as lockdowns are concerned, but don't be dumb. Wear a mask, social distance whenever you can.
For sure. Want to give them your socials before you get out of here?
Yeah, I'm Josh Rodriguez. You can follow me everywhere at Josh_Rodriguez_. My basketball podcast, The Diamond NBA, is going to be coming back soon at The Diamond NBA. And then if you like boy bands like I do, which I know is weird for some people to admit, but I don't give a damn. I always wanted to be in a boy band, and I have a podcast about it at New Pod on the Block. Check it out.
Yeah, for sure. Shout out to New Pods on the Block. Definitely some great content there. So yeah, go check it out. And of course, I'm Manny Brown, your other co-host, and you can follow me on Twitter at The Manuel Brown, Instagram, The Manuel Brown, Facebook, Manuel Brown, Snapchat, MannyBro15. Obviously, follow the show on Twitter at AGS Pod, Instagram, AGS Podcast, Facebook, Any Given Sunday. Y'all know the rest. As always, thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for supporting the show. We're getting a lot of love out there. Had some people hit me up offline, online, telling me how much they enjoy the show, which means a lot that, anybody's listening, much less many people are listening. So yeah, thank you as always for those who said kind words. And for those of you who said kind words, don't just tweet them at me or send me text messages, but man, go leave us a review too. I need to do that more. Plug us, man. Leave us a review on iTunes, on Spotify. That helps the show drives up traffic for the show. It helps us be, helps us show up more on search engines and all that good stuff. So yeah, man, definitely leave a review if you're really feeling what we're doing here. And don't be a dick. If you don't like us, just don't leave a comment. You know what I mean? Right. Just don't.
Why put like 1 star? I don't understand people who do that.
I don't understand that.
That's it. Just move on.
Let's just move on. Like, what are you doing? Like, just don't listen. You have more impact by just not listening. Like, don't listen to us, right? But yeah, man, if you guys are supporting the show and liking what we're talking about, definitely drop a review for us on iTunes, Spotify, all the major podcast directories, so that we can be searched better. So absolutely. And also check out the YouTube page. The YouTube page, we're trying to build it up. We got clips of the show on there. I think at last check, I had like 20. We had 20 something YouTube followers already, and that's in a week to 10 days. That's big. That's major. That's major. So yeah, man, check out the YouTube page as well, man. And as always, thank you guys for listening and supporting the show. Say this every week. I'll say it all the time. Without you guys, without your listeners supporting the show, there is no podcast. So yeah, thank you, man. And as always, stay safe, mask up, don't be an idiot, don't do stupid things, wear a mask, wash your hands, all that good stuff. Stay safe. For Josh Rodriguez, I'm Manny Brown. We are out of here. Peace.